Hello. Good morning. Oh, my sound. Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great.
Good morning, Peggy. Peggy, you have to turn your mic on.
Right. I'm signing in into VMview. Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
So let's start with the sad fact that today's our last day of class.
Oh,
I know, it goes fast. These compressed schedules here. Okay, keep admitting. Oops. Okay, so for better or for worse, we are coming to the end, not of our need to know, but of our allotted time to learn. And so I wanted everyone to know that there is another class that is full at this point that is starting next week. And I've got the schedule here. I'm looking at it. It's from 1:30 p.m. to 4:50 p.m. on Fridays. And in the morning at this schedule, I'll be teaching Illustrator. Both of those classes are already full, but you know how it works with these classes. People sign up a while ago and then things happen and they can't make it. So if anyone wants to be part of that, any of those two classes, let me know and I can put you on a waiting list. If I know people are not going to be attending, people sometimes already tell me, you know, I signed up, but I can't. Then whoever's on the waiting list, I'll tell them and they can get in first. Okay, so once again, to be clear, I've got Photoshop starting next week, but it moves to the afternoon, Friday afternoon, 1:30. I can just share the schedule here with you. That might be the easiest way. Here's the schedule. Okay, and so this portion down here at the bottom is where you see it. This is the class that just ended, and this was starting next week. 42386. So while it's full, if you want to attend it, this is the schedule: 1:30 p.m. to 4:50 p.m. And in the morning, it'll be in just Illustrator, which is from 9 a.m. to 12:20 p.m. So those are the two classes that are going to start running as of next week on Fridays. Dreamweaver's closing up. Living the iLife is closing up, but macOS Level 2 is starting up, which is on Tuesdays, Thursdays, 9 to 11:30. Anyway, so if that one still has a few spots, 3 or 4 spots. So anyway, I just wanted to share those for you to know that there's things closing down, things opening up, and not only for me, but also there's other people's classes starting and finishing. So this isn't the end of your journey. Hopefully, I'm putting this out and then I can talk to you looking at you. Okay, so what I was saying is today we're going to address, I received a question from Dot over the week about how to save a file from that was a PSD. It was you, right, Dot? Yeah, and I've been so big. By the way, right now am I shaking as if something is moving in the video?
No.
Okay, because I have the webcam on a little, like on a big cable, hard. Anyway, right now it seems as if my camera shakes a little bit, and I wonder how that translates to you. Okay, I just had to ask someone, and I never see it. I guess I could watch the videos and I would find out if it shakes or not. Anyway, The class that's coming up is going to be dealing with some depending on who's in the class, and I saw the roster the other day, that most of the people who are there are not new people, so then I can move forward, right? I can keep adding to what we've learned. The first day of Class Doe does become a bit of a, get everyone accustomed to things again, because there's 1 or 2 new people. Actually, I should look at the roster to see how many new people. Oh, during break, I'll check and see how many new people to warn you about how repetitive the first class is going to be. But the good news is that even if that first class becomes some of the basics, when most of the people are new people, I can gear the class to a higher level. And I know that some of you guys who signed up for this class are a bit frustrated that some of the stuff we did is pretty basic. But then it's spring. It's the day in spring we get, like, it's fall. In fall we get the first batch of students who then kind of keep going. And as the year progresses, as we teach Photoshop, things get to a higher level. And my goal is, with this second session of Photoshop in the same semester, is to keep moving forward. So I'm going to answer Dot's question, which had to do with once you have a PSD, right? Because she did some editing, she did some retouching that I was teaching you guys some retouching. We moved ahead, we did all that last week. And then what do you do with that PSD? How do you then, she wanted to send it to someone. And if someone else doesn't have Photoshop, a PSD is no good. You can't leave a photo in Photoshop mode, PSD, to share it with people. So, and how you save that photo and what you want to do with it is pretty crucial knowledge. If you're going to print it, it's one sense of information. If you're going to send it to be seen as an email, or if you're going to put it on the web, it's another set of things you do. So what you do with that PSD. Now, the important thing to know is that PSD, you shouldn't get rid of. You shouldn't ever get rid of it, all those layers. That should be the one that you keep manipulating, because trust me, if you think you got it right this time, wait until you do it again once you've learned more, and then you'll know that you can do it even better, right? And so the PSD is ultimately the master, I call it the master document that you keep working on to make new changes to, or coming back to for other reasons. But when you need to use that photo to send to someone, which is what Dot was trying to do, you need to consider what's the output, what's the need for this photograph. Is it going to be, I know Jacob prints these really, really big photographs that he sells. So how big do you print, Jacob?
13 by 19.
Okay, so he goes, pretty big, and it's a print. Do you do it on paper or on aluminum? What kind of prints?
On paper, yeah.
On paper. Okay, so that's something he does. That's his job. I know Thomas isn't in this class this time, but as a professional photographer who takes the class a lot, and he, with a bunch of his students, they go around the world and take pictures, and then they print them out, and they have exhibits, so they need big size pictures of it, printouts. Others of you guys just want to make photos a little bit better, and for personal reasons, and you want to email them, or you have a blog, or you have a need to do them for marketing. I think Linda, who fixes photos for real estate, right? So I remember that one time he showed us, that's just my memory, some green cushions, was it? Right?
Yeah, it was green. It was green cushions. I didn't like, we had a virtual staging of a property done by some, a company off site or whatever. And they staged a room completely with no furniture in it and put all the furniture in. And I didn't like the purple pillows. So I changed their virtual staging so that to how I liked it with green.
That's true. It was a virtual staging already. It was an empty room that somebody put furniture in virtually.
Correct.
But then Linda corrected the virtual furniture. Yeah, I forgot. I thought for a moment that it was true.
Yeah.
So anyway,
licensing or something? Is that going against like the licensing rules or something? Probably. I'm sure there was some disclaimer at the bottom that I can't retouch these or whatever, but I did.
You can't retouch the retouching. Actually,
Sorry.
I'm kind of laughing right now, but it is true. If it's somebody, you need to have permission to retouch someone else's art, so to say. And if this
There
is
you go.
considered art, you can't. But I'm not sure if this is considered art or if it's considered work. I don't know. Anyway.
Well, listen, I paid a pretty penny for the virtual staging, so I figured I own the photos.
So anyway, there you go. You could become someone who does virtual staging. You can become someone who works for Linda putting furniture in a room, right? Anyway, so the reasons for why you would want to use Photoshop are endless. The whole point is always, what's your end product? What do you want to do with it at the end? And it's usually going to be two answers. It's going to be virtual, online, on screen, or some kind of printing, right? So that's where things differ. And Photoshop, as a layered file, works for anything you're going to print. In the past, we couldn't print from a Photoshop. Now, ideally, you save it as a PSD to send to the printer when it's a job. Like you put your 3 photos in a brochure. You made a book out of it. Whatever it is that you ended up putting your photos into, if it's a product, if it's a printed product, a catalog, a flyer even, all of that, usually what we do is we import the Photoshop file into a layout program. And usually that would be InDesign or Illustrator, any of those things. And in the past, you had to import those photos as either TIFFs, sometimes as JPEGs, and then you would print out. But now you can import the PSD, the actual layered file. So you don't need to have a final image in there. And then you get a final printout of that of the whole book, right? And so you get a PDF of the whole book and stuff like that. So for a lot of stuff, you can leave it in layered files while you're still working with it in other projects. But when you are sending it to people outside of the world of the design of that product, so like to your mom, to your friend, putting it on the website, like that final piece, for people who don't own the Creative Cloud, then they can't receive a PSD because they can't do anything with a PSD. They need to receive a file that's called an output file. And that would be, for example, a JPEG or a PDF. That generally is the two things that go out into the world of print. But if it's going to the world of internet or screen, it could also be a JPEG or a PNG. So those would be the 3 most used formats: JPEG, PDF, or PNG. So, and I'm going to write those 3 in the chat, and then I'm going to start explaining the 3 options. Okay, so JPEG, PNG,
Deanna, while you're doing that, can I ask a quick
PNG.
question?
or PDF. Yeah. So one second. Those are output for formats. Okay. So I just wrote the word output formats: JPEG, PNG, or PDF. Those tend to be, at this point in time, the 3 formats we need to consider. Yeah. What's your question, Linda?
Oh, just about TIFFs, because my sister's an artist, fine artist, and she uses TIFFs a lot. Are those kind of the older thing that people aren't using anymore? What's the difference?
TIFF is still a valid format, but it's mainly used by anyone who did things the way we did them for the last, 20 years.
That's what I thought. Okay.
And it's still valid, but usually if you can make a TIFF out of it, people who can handle the TIFF can also handle the PSD.
The PSD, okay.
Or you leave it as you convert it into a PDF. So there is still, so this is TIFF, TIFF or TIFF is a valid format. It's just falling into disuse. But if you can, the problem with the TIFFs is that they are way bigger files. When you save a file as a TIFF, it becomes huge. And for the same use or effect, you can turn it into a PDF if you know what you're doing. And that becomes something much more just about everyone in the world can open a PDF. A lot of the printers, not just printer, I'm not talking about the printers in your office, in your desk, but I'm talking about printers, the company who prints things, right? Printers who print, you know, the brochures or the books or the pamphlets, whatever, the official printer. All their equipment at this point, unless it's ancient, it functions off of PDFs, and they want PDFs now. So it would have to be you printing to your own high-powered printer that you have at home, some that you might have bought a really expensive one because you're doing, you know, fine art kind of work, that you might print a TIFF out. But other than that, you can do that straight out of your PSD as well. Actually, in fact, that would be a Jacob, because I know you print your own stuff. What kind of format? Do you print straight out of your PSDs, or what is it that you do?
Yeah, I print straight out of my PSDs.
He doesn't need an intermediary. He has a really high-powered printer, and that's what he does. He just uses PSD. So unless you send it out to a company who is just dedicated to photography printing, then they can print from the PSD. But for the people who aren't into the world of being in the business of photography or design, a PSD is useless because you need the Photoshop program. And that's why you output a PDF. And if you output a TIFF, it'll be because it's a pretty official, you know, thing, like to a real printer. You wouldn't hand a regular person a TIFF either. So it's just coming. If you have TIFFs, they're fine. They're still usable. It's just becoming less used, and probably will keep becoming less and less used. Hi, Marie.
Anna,
Yes.
if you have it as a PSD and then you want to send it as a JPEG or a PDF, do you want to copy it so that you're saving your PSD still?
No, we're going to go through the process, and no.
Okay.
So yeah. Marie?
I had way back heard that for printing out, it's better to shift it to a JPEG just for the printing process. Sending all the layers through on a PSD or whatever.
Yeah,
That valid?
it is a very typical thing to do, but it is not necessary anymore. Now, if you're going to print from Costco, yeah, you need to send them a JPEG. So for many,
Home printing. home.
no, exactly no. So let me be clear. If you're sending stuff, you know, my mom travels here. She takes 100, 200 pack of prints home. Yeah, I send them to Costco for her. If you're going to go and send it online to just about any company that just prints photos, like, you know, pack photos, you send JPEGs. But the process of creating a JPEG is a process that this is a destructive process. JPEGs are awesome. They're very useful, but they are destructive. And unless you know how to save a JPEG well, you are lessering the quality of your image. So I'm going to get into the nitty gritty now of creating all of these things, and you'll see how and why. It's called lossy process. Lossy as in you lose. I know the word sounds like it's invented, but because it loses quality. If you do it well enough, it's virtually unnoticeable to human eyes. It is unnoticeable if you do it at a high level, because you can compress the JPEG to become a small file. And the whole goal of a JPEG is to become smaller. That's why you would create a JPEG, right? And so from your PSD, which is a big file, and saving it as a JPEG, you end up getting a flat file. So a one layered, all the changes you made, all your different levels of masking and and raw filtering, all the stuff that you've got done to it stays in your layered PSD file. But once you save as, okay, you can save as, or you can export out a JPEG. It depends on, you can either export out or save as, both ways. You get a new file that's a JPEG, and that one's a flat rectangular one layer of all your changes, and that is your, so to say, final, right? But by saving it as a JPEG, you compress that file, and the moment you compress a file, you begin to lose some of the nuance in the highlights and the shadows. You begin to lose some detail. So as long as it's your output file, that's fine. You do what you need to do. You get it the size you need to get it. You send it wherever you need to send it. And if what you're doing is you're sending it to the web, then you need to compress it a lot and make it much, much smaller. You do lose quality, but it's a bit of a, you know, you can't have everything in the world of printing. You have to have quality or size, right? And the idea is to balance what you end up with. That file should be used for that purpose and nothing else. In fact, you can toss it and you go back to your big PSD. Next time you need a JPEG. Now you need a JPEG. The first time you needed it to be 5x7. The second time you need it to be 13x19. Another time you need it to be 5x7. You create a specific JPEG for that purpose and use it for that purpose. And then that's it. Because if you open that JPEG to use it again, then save it as a JPEG again, that's another recompressing of compressed material. So it gets more and more ruined, right? So a JPEG should be opened once from camera, worked on, turned into a layered file, and then never turned to a JPEG again until it's ready to be the output file. And next time you need to get another one, you don't open that JPEG anymore. You go back to the layered file. The JPEG is a compression mode. I see your hand, 1 second. The JPEG is a compression file. You compress, you squish things in, and you get rid of stuff. So when you open it again, it's already a reduced file. And so you don't want to open that one again to make, say, from an 8x10 image, you want to make a 5x7. You don't start from JPEG. You go back to the PSD and you make now a 5x7. If you keep opening that one and making it again from JPEG to another JPEG, every opening of a JPEG and closing of a JPEG loses quality. Every time you save and close a JPEG, it recompresses, messing up the picture. So a JPEG is an output format only. And by the way, it's an input format in that it comes to you from the camera as a JPEG. Okay, so the camera has figured out the way to put a ton of photos into one little thing like this is to turn them into JPEGs, which is meaning they're already compressing them. So when you open them in Photoshop, you've already lost some quality from the moment they were taken. Then as you save out JPEGs, each JPEG loses some quality too. A well done JPEG is high quality, by the way, and I'm going to teach you how to do that, but it still is a process of loss. So you just keep going back to your layered file, which doesn't lose quality in your outputs. Okay, Suzanne?
Yeah. Several times I've edited JPEG. I try to only do it once, but I look at it again and go, no, this isn't right. So I do it. And as you say, it keeps degrading. You know, maybe I edit it and resave it 2 or 3 times. But then there's the option to revert to original. When it reverts to original, does it go back to the back to the original JPEG without all the degradations from opening it and closing it a bunch of times?
Okay, so there's 2 parts to that question. The first one, when you say many times you said 2 things. That first, you many times have fixed things, and then you go, oh, I prefer it differently, and you redo it. So that's one part of your question. The second one is the whole revert to original. So let me answer the first one first. Why are you saving them as JPEGs when you're done fixing them? Because that's the step I'm questioning. When you're done modifying them, why are you saving them as JPEGs?
Because they come from the camera that way, and I didn't know any better.
Okay, so you open it up. Okay, so you open up the layered file, and when you save, instead of saying save as a PSD, you say save as JPEG. Is that what you're doing?
Right, I get the JPEG from the camera when I download it. I open it up as a JPEG.
So then you open it up, you do stuff to it.
Yeah.
Like what kind of stuff do you tend to do? Just give me
crop it, intensify colors, whatever.
Okay, so you do all that, and then you save again as JPEG. Okay, so if you save again as JPEG, which is what she's doing, which is a logical thing until you have someone explain it to you, you'd go, came from JPEG, let's go to JPEG. That you're creating means that when you try to open that file again, you are fixing it based on what you already did. You aren't fixing it based on the original file that came from Photoshop. If she opens that photo again and she turned the sky a bright blue because it was say it was a grayish blah sky, and she made it nice and a nice blue sky. Save it as a JPEG. When you open that file again, now you don't have the old sky to go back to now make it a better blue. You can only work on that bright blue that you discovered turned out to be too blue to tone it down. So now you're fixing something. And so you're further and further away. And then you save it as JPEG and you open it up going, you know what? In the end, it was a bit of a murky day. Let me go back to cloudy grayish because this blue sky doesn't match what's underneath. And you're changing it again. So that sky now has 4 changes, all of it on the actual pixels, all of it unrecoverable. You never have that original photo again, unless you happen to maybe have made a copy of the original thing that came out of your camera. But then you're starting from 0 again. You have to start from 0 again with that image. So every time you save as a JPEG, you are flattening, so to say, all the options and changes that you've made, and that becomes your new pixel. It is now a bright blue pixel. Then it goes to be a not so bright blue, and then it goes into a hazy blue. All of that loses quality. Each one of the times you do that, your image has lost that much more quality. So if that's what you did before, now you know not to do that. Now you know to, the moment you open it from a JPEG, the moment you start adding a layer to change the color of that sky, to leave that as an editable, meaning you can come back and say, man, I want it to be a blue pink sky that day because I want to turn it into a sunset. As long as you leave it as a layer, you can keep changing that sky. It's like you keep taking on a pair of glasses, but you haven't really done cataract surgery to change the color of your eye. Not that you can, but you know what I mean? One is actually getting in there and changing the color of your eyes, and you can never go back. The other one is you put on a glass and you go, let me put another one on. Another one on, and you keep changing your glasses forever, seeing things as pink, blue, or brown. But in the end, your eyes are still your eyes, right? So that's the editable version. And you only get that if you save it as a PSD.
Okay.
And
So you can save a file you've opened up as a JPEG. You can save it as a PSD.
always.
Okay.
When you open it as a JPEG, you should save it as a PSD. You should.
Oh.
Not only you can, you should.
Right, but what about that magical button that says revert to original? Does that
Okay.
go back to the,
All right.
without all those changes in it?
Okay, so first of all, you need to show me that magic button because hold on. That, but I think you mean the big old revert. And when you open up a file from computer, from camera, you make a lot of changes to it. You can be working on it for 3 minutes and you can go back in history to go back to original in the history. But say that you've worked on it for 10 hours and have done 250 actions to change it. You can always, as long as you don't close that file, go back to original. You can do it in the history, or there's a thing and there's a menu that says revert. You can always go back to the original as long as you just opened it and have been working on it and never closed it. But the moment you save it and close that file, it's forever altered. When you open it again, there is no original to revert to. You have forever, permanently, the word permanently, altered that image if you save it as a JPEG. There is no more revert to original. So if you leave it open forever, which is not going to happen, you can always revert to original. But the moment that file gets closed, there is no more original to revert to. So it's only in that initial editing that you could ever choose to revert to original. And you lose everything. So if you've worked on it for 3 hours and you don't like something you did an hour ago, you lose all 3 hours of it, okay? So it's not a subtle thing. It just says, okay, I'm gonna dump everything I've ever done to this thing. That's the revert to original. It is only usable one time. Meaning you can revert as many times as you want as long as you never save that file. But you lose everything you've ever done to it every time you revert to original, and up until you save that file. Once you save it and close it, there's no original left. Is that pretty clear?
Yeah, I think what it means is when you say, I've edited the file 3 times now and saved it, and I open it up and I edit it again, and I go, no, I've just screwed up this picture, and I hit revert to original. I think it just goes back to the file that was just opened. Right?
Yeah.
Let me
It
go back
doesn't go back to, it opens
Okay.
to today's session.
Okay.
So say that yesterday I made my sky pink. I had an orange sunset and I made it pink. because
Okay.
I prefer a pink sunset. I save as a JPEG and I close it. When I open it the next day, my original is a pink sky. And now I go back to make it blue, but when I say revert, it goes back to pink. You've lost the original orange. It'll never be savable again as orange, okay? That's what I mean by you can always undo the day's work up until you close the file. When you close the file, that becomes the original if you do JPEGs. And on top of that, a JPEG, each time you close it, you compress it, you squish the air out of it, you take a lot of stuff out, a lot of detail. When you open a JPEG, it opens up again, and then you compress it again, you lose more stuff. And you open it up and you compress again, you lose more stuff. So by the third time around, that thing is beginning to get softer around the edges. It's not as sharp. The details are being lost. Anyway, so that is like just about the worst process you can go down, the reopening JPEGs, okay? So, so the process that we've been doing here, where you open and leave it as a PSD with all the layers, that's what you do. You leave it as a PSD with all the layers, and then you go back and you go, instead of a blue sky, I want it pink today, I want it orange today. You do it all on a separate layer, and your original pixels are still there as a bottom layer, being happy to not need to be changed. So anyway, instead of talking, let's go do this, okay? I wanted to explain a few of the other formats, the PNG and the PDF, and I'll do that as we speak. But I have a sample here. Oh, I had it behind me. I had an internet sample and it is gone. Okay, let me still show you this. The sample I had is gone, but hold on. Let me show you this because it's not so gone. To explain to you the difference between a JPEG and a PNG. Okay, so this is a web page, okay? The National Geographic. Okay, so over here you have two different types of images. This is the web now. You have a photograph, as you can see over here, of say the COVID virus right there, or the world, or this statue. And notice that all of them are framed as squares, right? As a rectangle. This COVID virus is not separated from its background. It's a square. If I click on it, I actually haven't clicked on that one, I would assume that there'll be a big version of that photo. The whole point is, so slow. Well, okay, so there it comes. See how it's attached to its background? That would be an example of, I don't know, there we go. See that top over there? I don't know. What are
I'm
you
not
seeing?
see what you're talking about.
Where's
Yeah.
I'm not seeing it.
What's my shared screen? Oh, I'm sharing the other screen. Okay. Let me send you to, it's not showing. Okay, I'll send you to this one. Let me see. Are you seeing this one here now? This
Yes.
is not, okay. It isn't where I wanted to end up, but anyway, see that coronavirus up there? Photo, the top?
Yes.
Okay, you can see that now. All right. So that coronavirus is a photograph that is still attached to its background. It is, in the end, a rectangular, at first I had shown you a square version of it when I guess I wasn't sharing correctly. Now I'm showing you a kind of a rectangular version of it where some of it gets getting chopped off, and it's called the banner photo, you know, it's kind of long and thin. But it's part of its background. Same as this. This is just a regular photo where it's part of its background. Imagine all of these are squares or rectangles. Now understand what I mean about squares or rectangles. It does matter because all of these can be, I'm going to backtrack to what I originally, the picture I originally had. This is the square version. All of these are JPEGs. Every one of these has been saved as a JPEG. But a JPEG can only be a square or a rectangle. It can only have that shape. There is no other shape a JPEG can have. So then look up here at these two little dinosaur kind of creatures. They look like birds, but the whole point is that dinosaurs used to look like birds. You see that? Do you see any background to it or to this one?
No.
Do you see how there's kind of text going in and out of them? This is a cutout. This is a cutout as well. The background has been dropped out for us to be able to put in, for example, the Reimagined Dinosaurs button. That is an example of something that it does not have a background to it. That has to be a PNG. You know, I told you can have JPEGs, PNGs, or PDFs. Something cut out like this, that's a PNG. If I were to grab this coronavirus and dump all its background and just put it on itself, as it's, you know, cut out if you want, and be able to put it on top of a pink sky, that would have to be a PNG. PNG is the only file that allows you to drop out a background and to have the file just be a cutout of something, okay? Say that you wanted to have a cutout of this statue, right? Type text coming in. You'd have to save that, make a mask for it. You know how to make masks now, we're beginning to learn. Cut that out and then save it as a PNG, okay? So that's the power of a PNG. Now, oh, here you go. Look at this little ad here. That sandwich is floating above this fake, whatever, art of wheat, okay? So we could do that in Photoshop and has this be a layered file, or you could bring a PNG over in the in here and just add a PNG on top of that illustration, okay? Because it's a cutout. This logo, see Disney X? That had the fact that it can be put on any kind of art, that has to be a PNG. So whenever you want to cut out a shape, I keep going up and down trying to find examples of things that are cut out. Most, of course, National Geographic deals with photographs, and most of it is JPEGs. Because it's going online, you have to save again as a JPEG. Now, when I say save again as a JPEG, and this is important, especially Suzanne, listen in, because this is, you were the one, and Suzanne said it, and I'm sure 90% of you are doing what she's saying, okay? So I'm not pointing out Suzanne, but she mentioned that she opens it up, works on it, and save it as a JPEG. What you would do is you would leave two versions. Say you took that photo of that coronavirus because you're that scientist with all the machines to take it. It would probably not be as good as what we're seeing. You probably bring it into Photoshop, you enhance, you make the colors bright, or maybe you assign colors, you do whatever you need to do, you get the background to be deeper, black, and you make the photo better as a layered file, and then you create as a save as or as an export as the JPEG that goes to that website. When you want to go, oh, that red turned out too bright, you go back to the layered file. You make the red a little bit less bright. You save another JPEG. And those JPEGs that you save are disposable. What's not disposable is your layered file. Okay, so let's go do that. Same with a PNG. You save out as a PNG. PNG, by the way, does not work for print. You can put it, you can't print a PNG to your home printer. So you wouldn't save your whole file as a PNG, but you can bring a PNG into your layout of your brochure and put your big cutout and put some text around it and then print the whole thing as a PDF. So anyway, for those of you who are interested in more about this whole conversation of what happens to photo beyond photography, like for albums, brochures, websites, all that kind of stuff, for creating products, Illustrator is a good class to take, and then Digital Design Techniques is a good class to take. I'm teaching it in the spring, I believe, and it either has been taught or is going to be taught this session by Say Dempsey, and I think it probably already started, or I don't know, look at the schedule. But Digital Design Techniques, what we do is we combine Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign to create finished pieces, okay? All right. So let me open up my, let me share my Photoshop with you guys from my other computer. We're going to open a file, make some small changes in RAW. I started with RAW in this class, and there's so much to learn in this class. And then we had, oh, where's my Zoom? Let me share. Oh, I did, okay. I hadn't opened Bridge yet. Sorry, I had Photoshop open, but not Bridge. I started talking without opening Bridge, so I'm gonna open Bridge right now.
Are you sharing?
Yeah, I'm trying to find the right one. I changed my formatting of my computer. In fact, tonight I'm upgrading the whole thing. I was going to do it yesterday, and I noticed I didn't want to mess things up before today's class. But I did change some things, so I need to go find the stuff again. Okay, so right now we're going to make a simple correction with RAW on a photograph. And then we're going to make an output file. And we're going to make an output file of it in 2 or 3 different ways. So let's go ahead and if you're in the general photos area still, then let's go and open this little guy, because this is a typical bad photo that can be made much better very simply. So if you go to the eye where you have a whole bunch of like image files, this is one of the ones that I added last week or 2 weeks ago. So those of you who are at home, you had to download these separately. If you didn't put them in the same folder, then you need to put them. Then you go to that second folder that you did loaded last week to find it. And if you notice, it's a JPEG. What this means is it was photographed as a JPEG. I'm going to mute everyone because someone's phone is ringing. And I don't know whose phone is ringing, so I muted everyone. If you need to speak to me, know that if you thought you were muted, you're not, because I just thought you were open, I just muted you. Okay. So it's a JPEG. And if I, in Bridge, select it and look here at the metadata, you can see that it's well, here, let me make this a little bit bigger so I can show it a little bit better. There we go. This little setting that shows up here is like a mini version of all the detail that you can keep scrolling and having more of there. And in this little mini version here, you see that it tells you the settings from the camera. And then here it tells you, does anyone remember what 3072 times 2304 means? What does that refer to?
Number of pixels?
Number of pixels per side, right? So this means that this pixel on this edge has 3072 pixels, and on this edge has 2300 pixels, okay, total. But then it says a certain file size, and then it says PPI. So pixels per inch refers to what resolution this photo is set to right now, meaning that over here, when it says I can print this as a 17 by 12 image, okay, in dimensions and inches, it says I can print it as a 17 by 12 image, but that is, to say it gently, BS, because of the PPI. These two are related. So at 180 PPI, I could get 17 by 12, but that photo would be horrible. I need to ring this up to, what's the magic number? What's the right number for PPI for printing?
300.
The 300. Let's generously say almost double, right? So if we assume that this is 180, let's say 150, 300, then that means that the size in inches is going to go down by half. So this image would have to be about only about 6 by I'm so bad at math. This is why I don't do math. Okay, so about 9 by 6 ish, because you have to have more of those pixels packed per inch. Now, since these numbers, as you can see, I'm no good at numbers, I have to do them with Photoshop. All I want to teach you about this is that when you look at it, you can't believe this dimensions in inches. You need to look at this and go, oh, I got to change that first, and then I'll see what size I can get to print it, right? So this is not fixed in stone. As long as you open it in Photoshop, you can change this relationship. What is fixed in stone is how many pixels came in. That happened the moment the camera clicked, okay? And this is a very old photo. This kid is now 13 years old, so imagine it's about 12-year-old photo or more. In fact, he's about to be 14, God forbid. So this is about a 13-year-old photo. And so that was the best the camera that I had at that moment could do. And I can't go and not only in time, but say that this was something that I could repeat. Say it was just a piece of furniture that I still own. I could take a picture again. But what I'm trying to say is you can't make this picture have any more pixels than it has the moment it was shot, right? So it'll never have more than 3,000 pixels. And if I try to have it have more, it would have to be Photoshop inventing those pixels. Thus, inventing those pixels, which it can do very well, it would lose quality. Anyway, let's go see this picture in big. It's a JPEG. By being a JPEG, that means that, let's double click to open it up. Did everyone find it by now? When you look it up a bit more closely, you can see that all is not so good in heaven here, because this is the type of photo that you experience when you use a flash. When you flash a photo in a room, and this was not a dark room, this was just, you know, late evening maybe. It was dark, but not black, and up so close, what you get is this very, you know, overexposed kind of like, boom. I always call it the big in the face, and then everything else goes dark. I hate flash photography. Very rarely, unless it's very well used, is it any good. The camera flash is horrible. It comes from the front and just does this effect. Now, there's tons of people who have photos that just look like this, because whenever you turn on your flash and you take a photograph of someone, they're going to get overexposed and everything else is going to be dark. So is there any way we can fix this to look a little bit better? The focus is a little bit off, okay? There's great focus on the hair, but by the time it gets to the face, it's a little bit softer and fuzzier, and the eyes are a bit receding. They're a little bit soft too, so we can work on that. And there's some cute little snot coming out of that nose, which is not so cute when it's seen up close, right? So can we fix that too? Yeah, all that can be fixed, and I can fix it in so many different ways, but I want to show you right now a bit more about using RAW. And this is not a raw image. So last time we used RAW, we had raw images captured as a raw image. And when you capture something as a raw image, of course you can fix it in RAW. But when you have a JPEG, an old one at that, right? You can still use RAW as long as you do it inside of Photoshop. So we've opened the file in Photoshop. We're gonna go up here to filter. I'm going to get my little spotlight. Again, there we go. We're going to go up to the filter, and I think we've done this before, where if we want this to not happen to the flat image, if we want this to happen in an editable way, the important thing is to convert for smart filters. So we, you know, it's been many weeks since our first class when I talked about converting for smart filters. What you do is you turn, so let's click on that. And when you do convert into a smart filter, it's basically saying that it'll turn into a smart object. Now, if you don't know the difference between smart filter and smart object, I don't even know why it bothers to not say convert to smart object, because basically that's what it is. A smart object is an object that's protected. So let's say okay to that. it's protected now. See how in my little tiny, over here, my thumbnail now has this little box down there. So pay attention to yours. It wasn't there before. This means I've converted this layer into a smart object, which I liken it to a little force field. I've put a little bubble of protection so that now any changes that I make will be editable, will be fixable, changeable. If I hate what I did, I can come back to it and fix it. All I had to do was convert for smart filters. Okay, that's it. Now that it's protected, I'm gonna go back up to filter and I'm gonna choose camera raw filter. As soon as I click on camera raw filter, I'm gonna go into a completely different window. This is my camera raw window. Now, some of you guys may have your camera raw window showing up kind of like floating like this in the middle of your screen. If so, take advantage of the fact that you can make it bigger. And over here on this little side, for those of you who did raw with me before, the raw window has changed a lot. This little guy there is where you'd click to make it fill your Photoshop screen. Please do that so that we can take advantage of all the different tools in Camera Raw. Is everyone with me? Are you following me? Give me a little yes if everyone has opened their photograph. Save it as a, not saved it as a, converted it into a smart filter and opened it up in RAW. Give me a little green yes if you've done all of that.
That means it says camera raw on top, but it's still a JPEG.
It up here where it says JPEG, yeah, it has to say JPEG. It is Camera Raw. You're opening the, it's a tool. It's called Camera
Okay.
Raw, but it's a
Okay.
tool. But your
Thank
photo
you.
doesn't reconvert to RAW. That story I told you about, the moment the camera saves the picture, it already compresses it into a JPEG. It already loses quality. When you get the JPEG, you already have a photo less than what nature, so to say, had, unless you save it as RAW. If your camera has the capability to not save as JPEG and save as RAW, then it won't compress it. But then instead of being able to save 1,000 photos on your camera, you might be able to save only 100 because you'll have very big files. That's because they're not getting compressed by JPEG, okay? And if you do that, when it comes in here, then the only place you should edit it should be in this RAW filter, okay, to start with. Then you can put it in Photoshop. But this is the way to use the same tool developed for raw images is so good that they found a way to make us use it, allow us to use it for JPEG. So now I'm in RAW. The image that you're going to edit should always be looked at 100%. And if I look at this image down here at the bottom left, it tells me that I am at, in my case, 71%. Depending on your camera and your computer screen, you might be in whatever other percent. So here at the bottom left, click on that guy and take it to 100%.
Deanna,
There you go.
excuse me, I missed something after I converted it to a camera
Yeah.
raw object. I'm not in the camera raw.
Okay, so I'm gonna cancel. And after you've converted it to smart filters, then you go back to the filter and you go down to camera raw
Okay,
filter.
thank
You open that up. And then once you do that, I was saying that most of the times camera raw shows up like this little floating window. If it's floating like that, please click on the top left toggle to make it full screen, okay? So that it fills your screen. And maybe it already opened up full screen for you. I don't know, but if it didn't, then I'm
did,
showing
thank
you. Okay, so is everyone in camera raw? I see some people haven't given me a yes, a green yes, but basically at this point, speak up or give me a no if you're not there and you need some help getting to this place. Maybe you haven't found the photo yet or you missed out. You don't want to do camera raw without doing the convert for smart filters. Don't skip that step. If you skip that step, you'll do camera raw and then when you save, it'll be saved in a destructive manner. and you will have lost the original pixels. So you need to first convert for smart filters, then open the filter. If not, it'll be a permanent problem. Okay, so I had shown you to go to 100%, and I went down here and I clicked on 100%. So now when you see things, this is as good as it gets. Here's the thing, as good as it gets is not too bad. First of all, if I want to move around to see if I can see the top of his head or back, if I click again right now, what's in my hand is a little zoom tool, and it's not what I want. So hold down the space bar, and if you get the space bar, you get the little hand tool, and then you can move around to see that which you lost when you went to 100%, okay? We didn't lose too much in this one in my screen, but it depends on your screen if you lost a lot. But anyway, I'm going to center his face because I can see that the hair is going to be fine. And what I notice is that what matters, which is the eyes, this eye is very sharp. In fact, this one's very sharp, this one not so much. But I've got enough sharpness. Look, I can even see the little hairs on his cheeks. It's worthwhile. I can enhance sharpness that's there. This is pretty sharp. I can enhance it to make it a bit more like that. If this had not been in focus, it would not have been worth the trouble to try to fix it. Notice that over here, his chin, this is a little bit softer. And focus when can be very shallow. It can be on, a 1 inch apart, half an inch apart where you have focus or not. And, a face has ins and outs, and that's why the same face can have some parts that are in focus and some that are not when you have a wide aperture. Okay, so here we go. And if you know about photography, if you notice, this is a very wide aperture, f2.8, and that's why there's such a shallow focus. And that's only for photography buffs, but you don't need to know all that. So some curls are in focus and some are not. See how this one that's in front protrudes forward enough that it's not in focus, even though these are. All right. Now, when you've analyzed if it's worth putting your work into it, which if it's a portrait, it's got to be about focus and expression, of course. Then you're left with this blinding white, flashy, like his cheeks, his forehead. There's this big foof of a focus of a light that makes for that skin to be basically gone. There's just a big old flash over here and on his cheeks. So the first thing I want to look at is, can I bring those highlights down? Can I recover some of that skin? Okay. So I'm going to head over here. Do you all see this basic thing opened up? I think it's the automatic thing that opens up, but I wanted to make sure because since I work with mine already, I might have changed it. But notice that this little basic on the left has a little arrow that if I click, it kind of collapses basic. And then you have basic, curves, detail, split tone. It changed. Those of you who've used RAW before, it shifted in 2020. The whole way the Camera Raw is presented is very different. What it does is very similar. But anyway, so to open up basic again, I click on that and then I have all of the stuff here. Okay, so that's all. In case you didn't have it open, just click on this little guy and then basic opens up. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to deal with those well, first I checked the quality, I checked all that. Now I go, okay, highlights. So I'm going to head over here to the highlights and let's see between highlights and whites what I can do. First of all, let's play with the highlights. If I move to the right, I intensify the highlights. Whoa, it's going white. Double click all the way to the right and double click and bring it back to where it began. Now let's see, I really wanted to bring them down. So if I go to the left, see how my highlights are beginning to tone down. Now I actually have some skin tone on his forehead. So the problem is that the more I go to the left, the more I'm beginning to get some kind of orangey stuff happening here in his nose. So there's a limit to how much you can push things. If you go all the way to the left, you've lost all the highlights, but you have this weird kind of little monster-y looking kind of thing. So you double click again. But the first thing you do is you try. You go and see how far you can get away while the whole still looks good. And then you should bring it back to 0. And you go, okay, now let me see what whites does. Highlights are the very, very tip. And if you hover over here, not the very tip, highlights are all the high colors. And whites, actually, are the very, very tip. So highlights are all the light colors, and whites are the most white. So this little tip here would be a white, okay? And everything related to that. So I'm going to go to the whites. And again, if I intensify the whites, I get a lot of white in there. That's probably not the right way to go. If I go to the left, I begin to tone down some of that white. And when I move this one down, it actually works a little bit better than highlights because I'm not getting so much orange stuff peeking into my skin. So maybe it's a combination of both. Maybe I bring a little bit of my highlights down, and then I bring my whites down and a little bit of my highlights down. So you start combining to see which one gives you the more normal looking skin while you begin to have skin tone again. Okay, there's no right setting. There is the setting that's right for you. And if you want to see how it was before and after your change, because many times you just want to kind of see that, and that's one of the beautiful things that this new bra has. See this little eyeball right there, that little eyeball? I can click on it and it shows me before, and I let go after my change. So click to see before, let go to see after my change. Okay, so right by where the word basic is on the far right, there's that little eyeball. Click and hold. You click and hold, not just click, but click and hold. That's how it was. Let go. That's how it is now. Click and hold and let go. So right now I'm happier with his skin. There's more stuff we can do, but I'm just showing you one little change there. I can also decide, well, can I bring up the shadows? Can I see a little bit more in the environment? I won't see much, but I don't want it to look like he's in this pitch hole. So I can go to the shadows, which is down here, and maybe I can lighten the shadows a bit. And now I can see the radio flyer down there. If I try to darken it, if I really want him to look like he's in a pit, I can, but I don't want that. I would rather see a little bit more of this background. Maybe I can lighten the blacks a little bit. There we go. And not too much, because blacks that are black that lighten end up looking kind of bizarre, right? So nah, I try the blacks, not sure. Maybe more shadows. Okay. Now I'm gonna go ahead and try to see this image, and it's, I went down again to full screen. You can also go down to full screen by going a command or control 1. Sorry, not 1, command and control 0. Sorry. And that brings us back so I can see everything that's happening in the background. And then I go ahead and I'm going to turn it on and off. So now maybe I'll do a bit more opening of the shadows so I can see a little bit more in the background. There we go. So now it looks, I mean, you're never going to recover color in what was black, but you see something so it doesn't look like he's floating so much as before. I don't think we need to work with a contrast at all. For now, color-wise, I think I'm kind of happy with that. Maybe the white's a little bit lower. Maybe exposure a little bit. Anyway, so I play with my stuff back and forth until I'm happy. Now I'm going to go back to the exposure as it was. Okay. And then I keep checking before and after. Before and after. Okay, so I'm much happier with this. And if you think about all the time I spent explaining versus the time doing, the doingness of fixing this image with this tool was a total of what, 20 seconds, right? So very quickly, I have a picture that is at this point quite a bit better. Now there's more we can do. I still have this white spot on his nose that I don't like so much. His cheeks are much better. This is much better, but not perfect. But I want to be able to get rid of that snot, okay? So I'm going to go back to 100%. And in fact, I could even focus on it at 200% to really see better the snot. So I'm going to put down my space bar and with my hand drag in. And there I have my kind of snotty area that I want to fix. And because I'm at 200%, things are beginning to look out of focus because you should look at things at 100%. But I wanted to go into the details, and I see a little bit of stuff here on the top of his nose. So we want to kind of clean that whole thing up. Okay. I see a little bit of shine here. Maybe it's a little bit of dribble. So all these little things can be fixed. That little dot there. So all those little imperfections, they can be fixed with some retouching. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to head back to 100%, sorry. Go back here and go back to 100%. You don't need to be at more than 100% to retouch, but I wanted to show you more in detail because these things are so small, the kind of things that we're going to fix. So you don't have to leave Photoshop. We can use the retouching tool here inside of RAW. So over here on the far right, for those of you who used RAW before, we had some tools up here. Now they've all hiding up there or down here. Okay. So you see the little Band-Aid looking guy right there? That Band-Aid, let's click on the Band-Aid. I'm going to mute you guys all. There's something like the sound of a fan going on in the background, and I'm not sure who has it, but it makes me feel like I'm having to yell to speak. Let me just mute everyone again because I don't know where it's coming from. It's some connection. And if it's none of you guys, then it's me. There it is. Now it's silenced. Okay. I feel like I'm shouting over the ocean waves or something, and you might not hear it from your side, but I was noticing that I was straining to speak. So okay, when I hear it again, I'll say, oh, there it is again, and then whoever turned on their sound, when I hear it again, will know it's that person, and then only that person hopefully will stay on off. Okay. So here we go. I turn on this little spot removal tool, which is the Band-Aid looking tool. And when I pull it out here, you'll see that this tool, I have a little spotlight in the middle because because of my spotlight feature. But remember how to make a brush bigger or smaller without the slider? So I could go to the slider here to make it bigger or smaller, right? But I'm using, what am I using right now when I'm doing it?
Brackets.
The brackets. So if you go to the keyboard, to the letter P, to the right of the letter P, you'll see the opening and the closing brackets. Okay, so that's what I'm doing to make it bigger or smaller. I find that this is a much better way, because if what I want to do is fix a little spot, then by doing it this way, I can actually focus on what I want. So this, let me turn I'm going to turn the spotlight off because it can get confusing as to why I have, I guess I can't, once it's on, it's on. There it is, mouse. Okay. Nope. I guess, let me just clear. It's not letting me, I'm going to have the spotlight on. Once I turn it on, I can't get rid of it. Okay, so I have my spotlight on. Okay, so here's my tool. And notice that there's two, ignore the little red spot to it, but what you have is a black circle and a dotted circle, right? And this tool is showing me how soft or how feathered my tool is, meaning the black outline is where a lot is going to change, and then it's going to softly feather itself out up until the end of that outline. So if I make my tool bigger proportionally, the center is going to be, much more of it is being affected, and the feathering is going to go all the way out to the edges. And if I go smaller, it'll be the other way around. Now I can change that because this word feather there is at 100%. This is equivalent to when the other day I talked to you about the hard brush or the soft brush. It's just called feathered here. So look what happens if I bring my feather down to like 10%. Then in my circle, see how my inner circle and my outer circle are next to each other now? I have very little feathering. So this is a very hard brush. I brought down the feathering down, and if I bring it all the way to 0, they're basically next to each other. So my circle and my dotted line are next to each other, meaning that there's going to be very little, that's going to be a very sharp brush. When my feather is at 100% right there, then it's going to have a gentle fall off. Okay, is that pretty clear? Does that make sense, you guys? The spot healing brush, you have to make it only as big as your blemish. So say that what I wanted to do is I wanted to go over here and fix, for example, that little black spot that's on his eyelid. That looks like a little dot that's not, you know, not a mark on his skin, because that one looks like a mark on his skin, but that one doesn't. That looks like a piece of dirt or something. So I have to make my tool really tiny. So I'm going to go and make my tool tiny, 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 tiny. And as tiny as that dot. So I'm going to keep going and make it really tiny. I don't want to be doing anything too big. And then when I have it just about the size of the dot, I go hover over and I give it a little click. And then this weird thing shows up. And this weird thing is telling me that that little spot where the dot was has been fixed by taking a little bit of that skin and putting it in there. Now, if I hate seeing that weird little thing, I can turn off the overlay. So I can go over and hit that spot, and all I know is it gets fixed, and I don't know where the skin came from that fixed it. Okay, so if I see this overlay, you're going to see where it is that the fix is coming from. So once again, say that I decide to, just so you can see, say that although I know that's part of his body, this little thing there, that looks like a little bit of a sleep kind of chunk. If I go down and make it small enough and just click one time over that little thing, the computer went around and tried to find something similar, and it went and found something over there to fix it. Now, once you know that's what's happening, you can turn off this overlay, and then you can not bother. You can just do a little, drag a little line there, and that thing will get fixed without having to see where it comes from. It just gets fixed, okay? So now I'm going to go to this little dot on his bottom lip, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, and I'm going to click a little tiny dot right there, and see how that dot is gone? And over here, it looks like there's a little zit that I can click on, and boom, the zit is gone. So anything that looks like it's dirt, I can go in and clean it. I can clean that little thing right there. So it's just a little click. Now this one didn't work, because see how I had a line on his chin and I fixed that one and suddenly there's no line there? So I'm going to undo that. So I'm going to do Control or Command Z, and I want that one to come back in, because otherwise it doesn't look right. So for that one, I'm going to have to use a different tool where I choose where to copy from. Anyway, so I'll go around fixing things that look like little zits. And I can get a little bit bigger so you can see what I'm doing here. And see that little shine there that tells me there's some drool? I can go and click on that and it goes away. I can go and click on that and it goes away. Okay. So how's that working before I go into the big old snotty pieces? Just trying it out with these little bits. Is it working for you? Yes, no, maybe? Since I muted you all, I can't hear anyone.
Yes.
So it's pretty magical.
I have a question. It's working, although I still have like left behind where I've made the adjustments. I have a little circle.
Yeah, so this little overlay, if you turn this when you turn it on now, it shows all the different places that I'm fixing. See
Got it. Okay. Yes.
But if I turn this overlay off, then I don't see it. And it's kind of cool. I've been clicking here and here and here and here, and it's been clicking in all these little spots. But I can turn that off, and then I can just see the changes without having to go through that. So now I'm gonna go tackle. I made it a little bit bigger. It's that center, the center circle is what has to be about as big as the blemish. The rest is the fall off. And if that feathering is changing the shape of things too much, then I can go and make it less feathered. Okay, so now I'm kind of working on the little spots of drizz over there. And now I get to this place where I don't want to lose the edge of my nose, but I can get in here and just kind of gently try that and see. And see that weird, bizarre thing that happens? Like I get a second or third little tip to my nose. So Control Z, that didn't work because I have a tool that is way too feathered for something so detailed. So I need to come down here and I need to bring down the feathering because I need more specificity for this one. So now that I have much less feathering, I can try again. I'm going to go a little bit, let me see, quite a bit smaller. And I'm going to try in there. No, don't like that either. So Control Z. This tool might not work for this tip, although, oh, where's my, oh, it went back to being fully feathered. That's why. I'm going to get very little feather. There we go. And let me try that one again. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, but less feathered. I keep going up big so you guys can see. Normally I wouldn't. And let me try that without so much feathering. Is that better? Might be a bit better. I have a little thingy appearing there. How about here? There we go. I'm beginning to clean up without changing the shape of my nose. There you go. See now my nose is becoming clean, but it's preserving. There we go. So that's my nose before and after. Now it's clean, but I didn't lose the tip of the nose. And now I can come over here a little bit bigger and I can try to kind of, I can also try and do a drag and just see what happens. I dragged and I'm going to wait and see. And oh, look at that. It's taking care of all that shininess pretty well. And I'm going to go up here with a smaller, I made my shape smaller to, because I don't want to lose the trim, the edge of my nose. So I got to get smaller to get that little, so I can go in here and by the time it's hard to even tell that it's snot anymore because it's so big and stuff, but I know that all those little shiny, shiny pieces are what is snot. So no one told you that when you came to Photoshop today, you would be cleaning up kids' noses, but there you go. That's what's happening. And this is, I have a couple of little shiny spots here that I'm going to take care of. And then by the time I'm done, I'm looking at a kid who has a very clean lip. And at 100%, you can't tell that he ever had any snot on that nose or on that lip. So how's it going with you guys? Any
Good.
questions? Pretty magical, this whole retouching thing, huh?
I love it.
Mm-hmm. So, and of course, if you have a bit of extra time, you see that little bright spot there that you didn't notice until I point out to you? Well, guess what? Later you'll notice when you see that thing calling your name, any huge bright spot like that is a problem. So I can just go in there and I can just kind of drag across that bright spot and see, there you go. It got replaced by some of that darkness. And again, there's a limit to how much you want to do, but if, after all, you know, there's such a thing called reality where things do have dots, but you can go in and start taking care of other little dots from here and there. But this tool is pretty amazing. And I don't know of you, but in my changes, I got this bright red pixel here. And I can click on that to get rid of that bright red pixel. I had noticed it earlier and I hadn't noticed why. And then, oh, I still have that thing there that I didn't like. Anyway, so now you can go into these little, this is how you have to be much more careful. But that little shine is one of the ones that gives away that this is a flash. So I'm not sure this is going to work. I'll give it a try, but if not, there's a different tool that I need to use for that. But I'm going to just give it a really one little click and see. Oh, see how a little jiggle happened? That's why it's very hard on an edge like that to do that. So I'm going to do Control Z because that there shouldn't be a little jiggle there. And if this tool doesn't work, see it doesn't, then I have to use a different tool for this. But for a little spot like that, that might work. That might work. Okay, so you got to make sure that it keeps the lines in the same way as they were. Let me try it here. Oh, that one worked. This one is the one where it's not working because it needs to invent some more of the eyelid. Yeah, it's not working here, so I'm going to undo that. So remember, your best friend is the Control Z. So anyway, I'm going to go to these little shiny dots that are a big giveaway that a flash occurred and try to gently. But remember, I'm doing a very small brush and gently clicking on these pixels that are not working. Not making big lines or big draws. Like if I go in and try to suddenly draw a line through all of that, it sometimes works. That time it did, and sometimes it doesn't. So you need to pay attention and be ready to say no, and immediately do Control Z and get rid of it. And if you like it, then you keep moving, but don't click really quickly, or you can't observe what you did, right? So I kind of liked that. So I'm gonna try it again with a little bit bigger brush, and I'm gonna just do a little drag over here, see if a bigger brush is better or worse. I kind of like that. I'm gonna go really a bit smaller, and I'm gonna try that. There you go. So I'm kind of managing to get rid of some of those extra big bright spots. Now the nose is gonna be a problem. I don't think we can spot the nose away, but let me try. I'll give it a bit bigger brush and do one gentle click there and see what happens. Oh, actually, not too bad. Not sure. No, it looks like I have a weird thing there. I'm going to Control Z. I'm going to undo that. I don't like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring down the opacity of my brush. Right now, it's replacing it with completely good skin, and it just looks weird. There needs to be some shine there because now it looks like a blunted nose. So I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to go to my opacity and bring it down maybe 50%. And I'm going to do that again because I need some shine on the nose or it doesn't look natural. I'm going to click on that again. Nope, it still took the whole shine away. That's wrong. So I Command Z to undo that. Bring the opacity even down more, and let's see if that helps. I'm going to try that one more time. Nope, it keeps finding it's too much. Let me see there again. I don't like that. So it says press this to auto patch. And yeah, I don't like any of those fixes. So I'm gonna have to fix that in a different way. So I'm undoing that change, Command Z. Oh. Whoa. I did 3 things at a time. There it is. I have to keep doing Z, Z, Z a few more times until I get back to having that shine. I didn't like that shine, didn't work out well. So if I can't fix it with this tool, then I have to do it in Photoshop where I can have a more subtle tool working on that area. Okay, so any questions before we move on? There's only so much that we want to do. Now I went back to I brought it down. So at 100%, I don't see the whole image. So I'm going to go down again. So I went like to one under 66% so I can see the whole thing. And now let me see the before and after. So down here at the bottom, I have this toggle to show me how it used to be before my spotting and my changing and now. So how it used to be and now. Quite a difference, right? So I don't know if it's subtle enough on the video to show you. But again, other than my explaining and talking, all of this truly by the first thing happened in 20 seconds and then this happens maybe in another 20. So in about a minute, I could be done with everything that we've just been doing. And look at what a difference between that photo and this photo. Again, it's not a masterpiece, but I've saved it from being a complete throwaway. Now, there's some things that didn't work, like the shine, that shine there didn't fix nicely and the nose didn't fix nicely. So things that I didn't like here, I can keep working with and actually in Photoshop. Let me show you one more tool. And because I'm trying to show you beyond the basics in RAW. So, well, let's head back over here. This is the healing tool. We head back to the one right above it. And that's the one that takes me to all of my other tools. Okay, so I went to the healing tool. And now I want to go back to all the sliders. And that's the top little icon right there. Okay, that top little icon brings me back to the sliders. I wanted to show you how to move around in and out of these things. And then the next thing that I want to show you is actually one of the things about raw is that I can't target the way I do with masks. I can't cut out his face perfectly and give him a different color jacket or whatever this is, little onesie, or cut him out from his background and put him in a green field of grass. I can't do any of that. I need Photoshop for that, the actual layering. But you can modify things by tone, as you saw. I can tackle only the highlights or only the whites or only the blacks, but I can also tackle areas. So I'd like to try one more. I still think there's a bit of a white patch here that if I try to go down too much more, it takes the whole face down. So I'm going to try to do a localized bringing down of the whites just in this area. Now, for that, I need to use the last tool, 1, 2, and 3, which is this adjustment brush. Okay, so we went from edit to the spot removal tool to the adjustment brush. The adjustment brush is showing me similar tools as before. In fact, if I go to the edit, I see exposure, contrast, highlight, whites, texture. If I go to the adjustment brush, there they are, exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, whites, blacks, texture. But in this case, it belongs to a different tool. To a tool that's going to do it only within the area of this brush. So it won't change it for the whole thing. It'll only change it for whatever I target. So if I make this smaller and try to target only this area, I can see if it's going to work. And I don't know if it's going to work, but I can try. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a marker here. I'm going to click in the area I'm trying to fix. So first make sure that if you have a very big brush, you bring it down. Now it's not going to be a spot, okay? Because it's just kind of this whole area. You need it to be very diffused. So I'm going to try for something about yay big to affect about yay area, about yay big. And I'm going to just say and land a marker, just a little click. See how I landed like a little push pin there? So now I can start moving little sliders around that'll affect only that area surrounded by that push pin. So let me just do something really extreme so you'll see what I mean. I'm going to go ahead and make the exposure on just that area change very drastically. See what I mean? So now it only works in that one area. Now, of course, that is wrong, but I was showing you how you can focus on only the surrounding area. And now I can just see if I can bring the whites down just in that area. So I'm going down to the whites and I'm bringing it down a bit. But my problem is that as I keep bringing it down, I feel like I'm getting a bit of gray on that forehead. And I'm not sure that I like this. Let me go to the highlights instead. Bring the highlights a little bit down. Oh, I'm liking that much better. So now I can see the before and after of that. Okay, I like that better than before. Let me see, there's so many things I can change, but all I wanted, so if I take this overlay off, I stop seeing the toggle, or not seeing, the little push print. That lets me see the before and after. So now I'm going to go before and after. Yeah, I like that I brought that down a little bit more, just in that one spot. I don't know. Let me see if I can do something similar to this nose, right? So if I leave this overlay on, I'm seeing what places I'm fixing, okay? So now I'm going to make a small brush, or not so small, about yay big, and I'm going to drop it on the tip of his nose. And I don't know if this one is going to work. I'm going to turn the overlay off, and I'm going to see. No, see that the bright light doesn't change, but my nose goes dark. That doesn't work at all. Okay, so I'm going to undo that. I'm going to get rid of that one. Yeah, I don't like that at all. All right. So anyway, I'm happy to say that no, that the only one that I'm going to leave is that one. Any questions about this process, you guys?
All good here.
You keep talking about working in Photoshop versus working in, I guess, Camera Raw. So
Uh-huh.
those are two different.
Well, I guess it's hard to explain. Camera Raw is part of Photoshop, clearly, but in Photoshop, you would have to target each one of these things with a different tool. You would have one tool to adjust exposure, one for highlights, one for blacks, one for texture, one for clarity. So in Photoshop, you can target things separately. Thus, you can get even more specific. Like you can work on each little eyelash if you want, right? But there's this Camera Raw is one of the tools inside of Photoshop that allows you to do like a lot in one. Like you can be a cook with 25 different tools, or you can buy one pot that does everything in one thing. And Camera Raw is kind of like I can do so many things at once, you know, those instant pots or whatever that lets you do a bit of everything instead of having a 5 different things. You do it all in one. So Camera Raw, you come and do everything you can in one tool, and it's simpler. And then you leave Photoshop for that which Photoshop is really good for. So it's, when I say Photoshop, I mean all of the separate tools Photoshop has, and this is one of them. But it's almost like it's compacted into so many things you can do at one time, that for many photos where you don't want to do any tricky things, for many photos, Camera Raw takes care of a lot of it at once, right?
So, Diana, in general then, if you're trying to do touch up on a photo, do you usually typically always start in RAW first before you would continue on if needed in Photoshop?
It's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea. I used to say in the past that the first thing you should do is control levels in Photoshop. Like I had a couple of things that you'd do first, but ever since RAW got so good, it's actually not a bad idea to start with RAW. Now, there's a limitation to that, and I'm going to show that to you the moment we go back to Photoshop when we say okay. Because if you are going to want to do something to this image that has to do with its pixels, cut it or something like that, you'll be limited if you did RAW first. So you would have to do that later. But I'm going to show you that as soon as we say okay and go back to get out of this tool and go back into the regular Photoshop, and you'll see why. By protecting it, we're going to have a harder time working with this with masking. Okay, so wait until we get back and I'll show you that. Yes, Marie?
With the adjustment brush, I'm not getting a second pin. When I click again, it just, the first pin blinks at me.
Oh, okay. Well, then you can create a new adjustment with this plus size, with this plus button over here under brush. Create a plus. See this? I don't know if you can see over here that I see under
the brush plus. Oh, I see.
Yeah. So click on that to create a new adjustment, and then go and drop that somewhere else.
Yes.
And for example, what bugs me is I like that I've lightened this up here a bit, but I don't like that suddenly I have some lighter stuff above his head. So maybe I can put a little adjustment brush up there, and there I go. I dropped one up there so that I can actually darken that a little bit. So I'm going to go in, and there we go. See how I just darkened that? So I brought the exposure down on that because suddenly it had become a bit too bright. And I'm going to put another brush that does that same darkness over there. So now I brightened all these other things, which makes sense, the radio flyer, but I didn't want those brighter things above his head. So now I just brought that brush down here to create a different adjustment. So when you want a different adjustment, you can click plus. Now I'm going to bring another adjustment, and I don't know, there's nothing else really I want to do, but I'm going to try one more time with a different setting on his nose with a new adjustment. And now when I brought it in, it came in with that same adjustment, so I don't want that. It made it darker. I want to create a new adjustment, plus. Let me see now. Nope, it's still bringing in that material. So okay, I'm gonna give up on the nose. I can't fix it here. Okay. back to the editing up there. There's a few more things we can do that I haven't shown you, which have to do with color and saturation and texture and clarity. I think I'm just going to bring a little bit of clarity in here. I'm going to just drag a little bit to the right, but I don't want to get too much, and this helps sharpen a little bit, but I want to don't get too much of it, because I mean, clarity can make things look much harsher, and after all, it is a baby, and a baby face shouldn't be very harsh. So I just put a little bit of clarity in to give a tad more sharpness to this. Sharp as it is, I can give it a little bit more. And I don't think we need much change in color here and vibrance or anything. So we're kind of done, I think, right now as to what I would do to this face. And as I said, I don't want you guys to be copying my settings. I want you guys to be just doing your own and learning how you want things to be. There's much more to RAW, but now I'm ready to say, okay, this is as much as this photo needs of RAW. So I'm going to go down here. I'm going to say, okay. And after saying okay, this image now has its original pixels that have been protected because I turned it into a smart object. And down here, I have the choice to turn on or off the changes I made. So I can, it's easier to turn it off from here, so it goes faster. So I'll turn that off. That's the before, and this is the after. That's the before of all the changes, and this is the after. And if I like the changes, I can leave them. If I don't like them, and this is the beauty, I can say, oh, maybe I want to go in and change something else. There's much more that we could be doing to this photo for the skin to be perfect. I'm just doing some basic stuff. But if I wanted to do something more, I want to go into the Camera Raw filter by double clicking on the word Camera Raw filter. And it all opens up again, and I can keep going. Okay, so one thing I might want to do is I might want to add a little bit of focus to this curl. Okay, so stuff like that. I'm not going to do that, but I'm showing you how basically you can undo everything you've done. These are the settings that we created. I could completely change the settings and keep moving, and I can keep doing that forever and ever. I can come back to you know, a month later or 2 months later. And yet, if I turn this whole thing off, that's still my original photo. So it's never been affected to the point of ruining my original photo. If I did this in a way that's not so good, when I learn about Camera Raw, I can come back and make it better and better and better. The important thing though, and this is what we started the whole meeting with, was to not lose this layered effect of it. This is already a layered effect. So I cannot and should not and must not save this as a JPEG. Although it is a JPEG now, when I try to save it, if I want to keep this editable, I need to save it as a PSD. I need to. If I say save as JPEG, this collapses into that and my new photo becomes that. And I can open it up and I've lost this version of it. And you'll go, yeah, well, so what? I lost that version of it. That was a bad version of it. I'm like, yeah, but what if what I did here isn't the end all end all? And if I want to make it better, I can keep editing this one to make it better. But once I snap it and collapse it, then my beginning is here. So if I actually wanted to bring a bit more light into the forehead again, or if I wanted to fix the squiggle over there, I would be working already with something that's been compressed and lesser than the original. So that's why I must keep this as a layered file. So to keep this as a layered file, let's go do that. We're going to save file, and we're going to save as. You know, even if I just try to save in this case, it won't let me. It'll tell me, whoops. So let me just show. Save as, I know that I want to create something new, but say that I forgot and I didn't know, and I just tried to say save. It's going to tell me, it's going to ask me where do you want to save it. So I'll say save on your computer, but it's going to tell me by choosing a PSD Photoshop because it notices that I have a layer. So I would have to forcefully change that into a JPEG, because the computer knows that what I should be doing right now is I should be saving this as a PSD. And that's why it's telling me save as PSD, because it sees that I have a layer. So even if I don't remember to save it as a PSD, the computer is going to remind me that you have layers now. I would have to forcefully say, no, I don't want a Photoshop, I want a JPEG. And I would never do that if I have layers. Okay, so I'm going to say thank you for reminding me. And I'm going to save it. Now, you guys can't save if you're in VDI to this same folder. If you're in VDI, you have to go to the, if you're at home, save it wherever you want. But since you're in VDI, I'm going to have to go to Google File Stream and move over to My Drive. And then I have a Photoshop folder where I'm putting these guys. And maybe I'm going to call it Retouched. I'm going to add, so I can remember it's the same one, but I'm going to add Retouched with Raw. Okay, just so I remember what I did to it. Okay, and then I'll say save. This will always come up and you always should say yes. In fact, if you're at home, you can just click on the don't show again so that it doesn't show anymore, because you always want to be okay with that.
Are we
Yes,
saving,
Marie?
saving to general photos to the same file folder?
Say that again.
Where it's asking where to save to, general photos.
Okay, you're in your own computer, so you can save in the same folder that it came from. That way you have them next to each other. You'll have the unedited one, JPEG, and the edited one, which is layered. You'll have both next to each other. Those of us in VDI, we can't save into that folder, so I'm sending people in VDI over to their own My Drive. But if you're on your own computer, just save it right where it came from, and then now you have the unedited one and the edited one files. One is a JPEG, the original one, and this one's a layered file, and they'll be right next to each other. Does that make sense? You kind of want that. Now, at this point though, I am working with, up here, you can see the name got changed into retouchraw.psd. Okay, so now this file is my standard from which I can create something as a JPEG if I want to put it on the internet, or I can create a PNG if I'm crazy enough to try to cut him out of his background, which with this kind of hair, it's going to be hard. It's doable, but hard. It's actually easy if I want to put him onto some other dark background, but it'll be very hard to put him on a light background because there's so much black in between his hair. So when you want to cut something out, you need to see what's not going to be changeable. And like behind his hair right here, you can see black. So if I were to try to put him on, say, a blue sky, that would not work. You can do it, but it would be way beyond the level of a Photoshop 101 person. So now that I've decided that this is the photo that I want to send to my mom because she is going to do something with it, and to my sister because she's going to do something else, or put it on my Facebook because I think it's really cute, or whatever I want to do, I need to make that output file. Now in Photoshop, there's more I could do. Remember I told you that I had this I should fix in Photoshop. There's a couple different things I said that we could fix in Photoshop, but I want to make sure that I complete the whole conversation about the output file. All right. So I want us to save this. I want us to take our break. We're going to come back in. We're going to learn all about how to save all of this as an output file. And then if there's time, I'll show you how to fix those two little things in Photoshop, which is like one extra layer beyond what we did in RAW. Okay, so it's 10:45. We'll be back at 11. Okay?
Diana, I have one quick question.
Yes, Lisa?
Why you would have taken out, to me, what is the most obvious thing in the photo, which is the reflective flash white light in his pupils?
I would do that in Photoshop. I'm not sure that I could do a good job of that in RAW, because in RAW you can't choose where the copy comes from. I could have tried, but that's more of a thing for Photoshop. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah. I guess, I don't know, let me try. Raw has gotten so much better. Let me open up and give it a quick try in Raw. I don't know if Raw can handle but let's try it. Let me go to the spot healing tool, turn off the overlays and see, because you're not in control of what happens with the spot healing tool in Raw. You are with the cloning tool, but let me see if it gets it right.
Yeah, kind of not.
It didn't. Let me see if I make it even smaller. Yeah, it's not, I have no control. It's so automatic that it'll do what it'll do and nothing else. And it doesn't really give me there, it just eliminated it.
Creepy.
Very creepy. Yeah. So no, Raw can't handle something like that. You need to have more control over it.
Okay,
So
all right.
yeah. And in Photoshop, you have full control. In Raw, it's an automatic tool that does its best. And when it's good, you leave it. When it's not good, you go, okay, I got to go to a better tool. Better tool is here in Photoshop. All right. So once again, I'll see you guys at 11. I'm going to stop my share. And someone in Zoom, what's the CRN for the 1:30 Photoshop class? It's 42638C. Yeah. So guys, anyone who's still listening, I don't know if I turn off my sound. The class is full right now. So it's not going to show up as a choice. But if you tell me, I can put you on a waiting list and I can send you a paper PDF form that you can fill in. And then the office people can sign you into that next class, okay? You can't sign in because it's full. So it's a bit of a roundabout process, all right? So I'm going to open up a waiting list and put you on it, Linda, okay? Oh, I don't know how much people heard since I told them to leave, but here we go. All right, I'm back. So hopefully you guys will start trundling back, or maybe you're already here. I just wanted to say that I've noticed some people have not signed in to the chat yet today. So can you please go into the chat and sign in? And I also wanted to say that I have opened up the waiting list, and I added Linda and Carol to the Photoshop that they asked me, and Dorothy to the Illustrator. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send you guys a PDF that you have to fill in, and then you can send that in to Emma. I'll send you an email about that, and then you guys can sign into the classes. It's the equivalent as when I had to sign in before. It's the signature thing that you can't, they won't sign you in unless I say it's okay. Because when the class is full, they don't let any more people in until teach. Now, I'm not going to let hordes of people in. In the summer, I had huge classes and that didn't work out too well. But definitely, if you've been in this class and want to continue taking it, I'll let you in. So, all right. So I'm gonna, one thing that frustrates me is that I see so much less of your guys' work through Zoom. I mean, there's many things that are great. A lot of people are really happy that they have the videos, they can review and do stuff. So there's a lot of good stuff about having this new system, but I find that I don't see what you guys are doing. So it's harder to get a feel for how it's going on the other side. Unless you have a problem and you share with me, I don't in fact see what you're doing. So I've been requesting it in the Dreamweaver class. I'm going to request it in the Illustrator class, and I'm going to start requesting in the new Photoshop class for you guys to send me little screenshots of what you're doing. And in fact, every time I teach you something new, I would like during the week for you guys to apply that skill to something of your own and then to send me a screenshot of it. So that's going to be a requirement for the future classes. And out of feeling disconnected. I'm not feeling disconnected for you guys. You're talking to me, we're figuring out, I know you're learning, but I don't really know what's happening on the other side. And it's been working for me to see that with the Dreamweaver class, and then I can actually with that pick up on what to maybe how to keep guiding you. So anyway, that's if you guys have anything, even if the class is over today, if you have anything you want to share with me that you've been working on or doing, that would be great. And sometimes you can do send me a screenshot of the before and after, or just send me the after and tell me what you did. But the before and after would give me a better feeling for what you've been going through. And remember, in Photoshop, a before and after would be as simple as turning off every layer that you've added, because to get to the before and anything we've been doing, all you need to do is turn the eyeballs off of everything. That's your before. Get a screenshot of that, and then you turn all the layers on of where you think it was fixed, and then you give a little screenshot again, and that's your after, right? And then send me those too. Now, for those of you who don't know how to do screenshots, I don't want to spend, I mean, you don't need to send me your entire layered file or anything like that. Just a screenshot of what you're doing is fine. And a screenshot on the PC, you go look for the snipping tool, and it comes up, and in the Mac you can just there's an even easier way. I always do it with the shortcuts, Shift Command 4, and this little guide turns on. But there's a new way that I never remember, that people always remind me about, and I think it's is it with Command 5? Does anyone remember? No, I don't remember what the other way is. That supposedly it's easier, but I don't remember. And since I'm on a fake Mac, I'm on a PC right now because of VDI, my shortcuts aren't working. So anyway, if someone wants to put it in the chat.
Well, I think for Mac, for Mac, you got to do Command Shift 4, and then you can click and drag whatever area you want to.
Yeah, but that's what I've always done. But there's a new system for the Mac that's even easier than that. And when I was shown, I've been shown it, and it's really easy. But since I've done Command Shift 4 all my life, I don't remember the new one, which is supposedly easier than Command Shift 4. But anyway, if not, the one I've always done is Command Shift 4. So for Macs, I'm going to write that in there. You hold down the Command key plus the Shift key, right? And then a little cross marker shows up, and then you drag that and the number 4. So that's the Command Shift 4. And for the PC, look for the snipping tool as a piece of software, and you search for it, and it comes up, and it's the same thing. You basically drag across what you want. Anyway, and then you send me those screenshots. All right. So what do we do with this photo when we're done with it? Now, again, this is not the best photo in the world. It's a photo that it's typical for people to take when you are an amateur photographer and you love it because it's like, oh, my grandchild, and you just want to fix it, right? So a lot of the times in Photoshop, I try to imitate real aspects of photography. And then you apply them to whatever level of photography you're in. Now, this is a photo I would send to my mom, to my sister. Maybe I would have put up in Facebook if I'm in social media or in Instagram or that kind of stuff. I don't do much social media, but that would be the kind of place you would want to post these photos. But maybe you're a mommy blogger and you put it in your blog, right? So there's all different outlets for this photo. If I'm my mom, I would probably make a coffee mug out of it, or, you know, whatever it is that my mom does, because that's the kind of stuff she does. So all these things I'm mentioning is because whatever output this is going to have, it's going to need a different treatment right now from me. Just out of curiosity, and just because I like to learn about you guys, what kind of things do you do with your photos? Like, I know that, for example, Jacob prints them and sells them. Marie makes these fantastic concoctions. Every time she goes off video, you see her little angel floating with the whale there. And that's the kind of thing she does. And she makes greeting cards. She sends them to people. What do you guys do with your photos? Or maybe what you plan to do now that you're learning how to do this? Oh, by the way, the other thing I do is I create designs. My Photoshop skills are used into going into actual design work for my clients, right? And so that's my ultimate use of Photoshop. Dot saying that you've made some photo books. What other stuff do you guys do when you fix photos, or what would you like to do? I would like to know. Do you want to create things like that are not from reality? Do you want to just make your photos be the best photo ever? Any feedback there?
You know, mainly I just use it to help clients. So again, it's sort of, you know, I have my own, like, I like to make little collages and stuff. They're just like little vision boards and things like that.
Okay.
That's just for pure fun though. And then I just, you know, I do what I get called to do to help folks with their graphics.
That's great. If you'll see in the chat, people are writing in the things that they're doing. Fixing for design work, for artwork covers, for blogs, for travel photography, enlargements for home decor. All right, and then I like, you know, that sounds great. All right, if cards for family and friends, cool. Oh, Carol, you're writing to me privately, so the group can't see. So you should change your setting to say to everybody, so people can hear what you're saying or read your notes. Anyway. 5x7s to put on the bathroom wall. I have a whole wall of family and travel photos. Cool. All right, Linda and Heather, a high-end photo scanner. Oh my goodness. I'd like that and can't wait to see if it'll come in handy for the enlargements. Good. Blurb book of family photos. Okay, good. So basically nothing that we can't handle with everything that we're going to learn how to know. So anyone that said the word print, anything that was going to come out as something that you can hold, that needs to be a high resolution, 300 PPI kind of end product. And for anyone who said blog or like design work, I know that Leland works on websites, so that kind of stuff would end up being online. Probably Sam also. Her stuff is probably both maybe in a postcard and online. So there's only one or two of you who mentioned online things. No one said web pages. No one said social media. But anyway, if it's going to end up online, then resolution doesn't matter. Then what matters is compressing it to make it be the smallest file possible while not losing quality. So we're going to go through some of those things right now. I believe at the first or second class, keep me straight here, we went and did the whole how to save a photo for print at 300 PPI. And since we already did that, I'm just reviewing it really rather quickly. So if this photo is going to be printed, let's head over to the image size box. And this is what we did at the beginning of the class. Not today, at the beginning of the session, right? Like first or second class. You go to the image size. And so once again, how I got here is you go up to image size, Alt Control I. And over here, what was the most important thing about this box that I said? Don't forget that there's one thing here that is crucial. Does anyone remember?
To turn the resample off?
Yes. That resample little check mark is crucial to know what it means to have it on or off. So I need to make sure that to be safe that it start out with it off, okay? And now this will start out the way you left it the last time. So sometimes it'll be on, sometimes it'll be off. It's not like it's always in one position or another. So if you open this box, just train your eyes to look at the resample box, turn it off. Once you turn it off, you're safe, so to say. And then you can play around with resolution and go, okay, I'm going to make a print. I'm actually going to make a little print, put it up in my, was it someone had the family bathroom wall. So this is going to go in the family bathroom wall. So for that, I'm going to have to print it. So the resolution here has to be 300. So I'm going to change that number to 300. When I change that to 300, my 17 wide photograph shows me that the biggest it can be now is really only 10 inches wide. Remember at 180, just to show you again, it said that it could be 17 inches wide by 12 or 13. Now I'm saying, well, I need it to be 300 PPI. So then it goes, well, you can print me at 10.5 by 8, which, about 8 by 10. If I want a big photo, that's fine. But you know what? I actually really want to make it into just a 5 by 7. So I'm going to go for the biggest number here. I'm going to put my 7 over here. Ends up being 9. Oh, sorry, 5 by 7. Sorry. So I actually need to put a 5 over here. And it turns out that I don't have enough. When I put in a 5 here, I don't have enough width if my frame is a 5 by 7. So when you do that, you need to keep an eye on the other side or you'll end up having some blank space. So instead I'm going to shift that and say, okay, I'm going to do 7 by 5.5. Okay, so if that's what you're going to do, look what happened to the resolution. It became much bigger than 300. Okay. Does this matter? This is all kind of review. Does it matter or not? Well, if you're just going to print it out of your own computer, then no, it doesn't matter. You just print it anyway, and your printer will do just as good a job as if it had a resolution of 300. You won't see any difference. The thing is, though, this is a big file, and it'll take a while for your printer to rasterize it and print it. But you're just doing one, so what do you care? Fine to wait until one print comes out. The issue of leaving it this way is when you're actually going to use this photo as one photo of many. So for example, those of you said, I'm going to make a photo book. Or if your project is going to be, sending it to the Independent because they're going to print it as one thing amongst 300 photos they print in each issue because maybe this is the baby of the month or something like that. So when the size of the photo has to be as big as it can be and nothing else, that's when you turn on the resample. And I did not cover resampling when I did this at the beginning of the class. So I'm going to say, okay, the biggest photo I need is 7 by 5.25. And I don't need that much resolution. So I actually need to get rid of some of the material of this photo so that it becomes smaller, so that it's easier to print. That's when resample comes into hit. So I'm going to turn on resample right now. So everyone turn on resample. And when I do that, notice how width and height still are connected, but resolution is not connected anymore. So now pay attention to what I'm going to do before you do it yourself. I'm going to go over here and I am going to change this to 300, but keep an eye. You guys look at this. Don't look at this. I'm going to write 300. You know what I'm going to do, but this you don't know. So look at that up there. And as I write 300, look what happened. What happened is that for the computer to give me 300 pixels per inch, it has too many pixels. So it dumped a whole bunch of pixels. We went from 30 something, whatever many pixels I had, 3,000 pixels to 2,000. And from 2,000 over here to 1,500. So I got rid of a huge bunch of pixels. Thus, my file that used to be 20 megabytes big is now only 9.4 megabytes big. Does that see what happened? This is truly affecting the quality of this image. This is actually meaning that once I say okay to that, that image is no longer able to be printed at bigger because I am getting rid of pixels. Is that pretty clear? This is a dangerous, should be done only with very much care. In fact, what if I didn't really want a 7 by 5 image? What if what I wanted was a small wallet-sized image, a 2 by 3? All right, so leaving the resolution at 300, let me say that all I wanted was a 3 by 2. Because of the proportion, it turns out to be 225. That's fine. So look at what happened in here. Even more pixels were gotten rid of. Now I'm down to only 900 pixels by 675. So I am throwing away a lot of this prime material. It's like you got good stuff and you're putting it all in the trash, right? Well, as long as I don't save the file, I'm fine. But I need to be aware that I've been left with a very reduced version. I used to have a 20 megabyte file. I'm down to a 1.7 megabyte file. I used to have 3,000 pixel. I have less than 1,000 now in width, okay? All that information is truly gone because I hit the resample. So only do this when you know what you're doing. But if you do know what you're doing and what you truly want is a 3 by 2 photo, that's a great idea. So now let's say okay to that. Now this photo, the crucial point here for anyone who is listening is to not press save. I'm going to go and show you what Suzanne asked at the beginning of the class. She said, can't I just revert to original? Well, there's two ways right now that I can save myself from what I did. If I don't save and close my file, okay, I can save it, but can't close it. Then I can still go up to my history. And if I click on this thing over here, boom, that's equivalent to revert. I got rid of that mistake. The other place, say my history has over here somewhere, one of these options says revert. Which one is it? Edit. I never use it, so I don't remember it much. Suzanne, where was the?
I think it was under file.
That's under file.
File, revert, there it is. File, revert. If I hit revert, I go back to the original. But I lose all the good work. I lose all the work I did in RAW. I lose all of that, okay? So you wouldn't necessarily hit revert just because, unless you hate everything you've done. Ideally, instead of reverting and getting rid of it, you would just go back in a few steps and get rid of the last thing that you didn't like the image size or something like that, okay? But anyway, say that you don't want to revert, you just want to save a little 3 by 2 version, This is very crucial. Once you have dumped a lot of pixels, you need to be very careful to not save, but to save as a JPEG. So you can go file, over here, file, save as. If you save right now, you can still go back in history to revert. But if you save and close the file, you will never get back the pixels you lost. So the key point is that when you close the file, all your history goes away. All right, so I'm going to do save as instead. And I'm going to say save on your computer. And at this point, we do want a JPEG because we know that this little 3x2 is that JPEG. So I click over here and go to JPEG. Don't do this quickly. I want you to stop at every possible setting, okay? I want you to explain every possible setting. So for those of us who are in VDI, if you're at home, you can just go over here. Make sure to change the name. You're gonna save a JPEG, but remember the original was already image 425 JPEG. So if you save now and don't change the name, you're gonna save over and lose your original JPEG. So make sure to change your name to not lose over, to not save over the original. Does that make sense? So if yours, you didn't add a name to it, if you didn't add anything like that to it, then at this point, what's gonna happen is that you're going to save this as a JPEG and it's gonna have the same name as where it came from for those of you who are in your own computers. So make sure to change your name. And for those of us on VDI, we're gonna go to Google Drive, My Drive, Photoshop class files, and I'm gonna save it over here, okay? So now, whoops, I didn't mean to get rid of that. So now, I'm gonna save it as a JPEG so it's not a copy. And I'm going to say save. Now, careful, when we say save, it's not gonna be done. There's gonna be something happening. And don't click through. A lot of people just kind of go, okay, 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 and they don't read these boxes, and this is a crucial box. It's a crucial box. Once you save a JPEG, this comes up every time you say a JPEG. Remember I told you every time you say a JPEG, you ruin it a little bit more and more? Because each time you save a JPEG, you have to compress it. That's what a JPEG is. It's compression format. Each time you save it, you compress it on top of the original compression. So this little box is a very it's a very low level way of saving, unsophisticated, very low level way of saving a JPEG because it doesn't give you many choices. All it says is what quality do you want? If you save it at the maximum quality with the slider here, it'll give you the least amount of compression, right? It seems weird because it's a large file, but it's the least amount of compression. Thus, you get a large file and it's at the highest quality. You don't lose much. Usually this is okay to do to a photo. Just don't, next time you need a photo, don't start with this one, start with the original again. But this, our eyes won't notice the difference with this amount of compression and you'll get a much smaller file. But if you start bringing this down to get an even smaller file, see how over here, your file is gonna end up being 577K? If you start bringing this down to get a much smaller file, 168K or 97K or 66K, you're lowering the quality of that image. And in this mode, doing any of this is really dangerous because you don't see what's happening to your image and you can't tell if it's getting ruined forever and ever. If you do this, you won't know that it's ruined because this box doesn't give you a good way of telling. So if you're gonna go anything under, say maybe 10 quality, like over here, you probably shouldn't be using this box. Now, between 12 and 10, that file size went down to half the size. So when does file size matter? This matters if you're going to the internet. So if this JPEG is to go to the internet, sure, go ahead and compress it, but not worth it to doing it here. It's better to do it in another tool. If you're going to print, it's fine to do this, leave it at max, and save it at the biggest file you can, which is what we're going to do now because we want a little print out of this one, and then say okay. Now I'm going to show you where you go if you don't want to ruin your quality. All right, so I said okay. Where is that photo? It's an output photo. It went and saved itself. If I go to my Google Drive now and show you my Drive, Photoshop class files, there it is. I have the retouched raw JPEG is 507 KB versus my retouched raw PSD is 94,000. Look at the difference in size. This is the same file name. This is my layered file. This is my JPEG. So clearly I've lost a lot of information in this file. So that's why you want to make sure that you give it another name to not overwrite it, okay? Because this is all the stuff my photo has, and this is just my little version for a 3x2. So one thing I forgot to say is that when I do this to a photo that I lost a lot of stuff, I tend to write in the name, like in this one, I probably would have written 3x2, right? So that I would know that I've reduced it to that size. And usually I would write, if I change the quality, I would write what kind of quality I saved it to. Anyway, that's just that. In the future, oh, back to this one. What I mean by you can, in the future, get rid of it. In the future, once I've used that 3x2, if I'm never going to print a 3x2 of it, I can just get rid of it. I can right click and send that to the trash because I'll never do that again, that JPEG, but I would never get rid of this one. The one that's my layered file that has all the information, because what if I want to do something else to it, right? So that's what's important. Now, back here in the retouched raw that we should have, we're still left with a photo that we lost a lot of information on. I should go back and undo that step so that I can now prepare this for the internet. Because if I go and try to undo the step in history, that never happened. I never lost the quality, right? But if instead of undoing it in history, if instead of undoing it, what I do is I try to make it bigger again through image size. Say I go, oh, it's okay. I'll just put that stuff in there again. I can make this go back to being 17.5, whatever inches it was supposed to be. Don't do this, but watch. I can do that, and Photoshop happily complies. But look at what's happened to the quality of my picture. This is 100%. It's totally, so I'm going to say okay so you can see it better. It looks okay until I go seeing it at 100%. And when I go see it at 100%, let me move it to 100%. When you move this to 100%, look at how, this is Photoshop had to invent stuff, and look at how much softer it shows. I don't know if you can tell online what's happening because with the video and the zoom and everything, but I have lost the sharpness. All my hairs are fuzzy. The eyes are blurry. That's because Photoshop had to fake add new pixels because I had thrown them away. So that's because I tried to fix it by making it big again instead of undoing the fact that I had gotten rid of it. So anything you do in image size, if you want it undone, just go to history and undo it. So get rid of it. So I'm going to go one step beyond my image sizes so that I have my image fixed by raw, but not messed in size. Okay, so I want everyone to do that. Go to your history. If you don't see this little history icon and you can't find it and you're not with me and you don't remember which one it is, every single one of these windows shows up under window. If you go to window, just look for the word history and click on it and it'll pop open. Okay, in case you forget about this little icon that's just kind of like the upwards arrow going back in time to before you did something. But if you forget that icon, then take it from there. Okay, everyone go back in history, get rid of your image sizes and click on the last thing you did before image size so that we can all go back and have our full size image. And now I'm going to show you how to share, how to save this, how to export this safely if this were going to need to be more compressed. Did everyone do that? You backtracked? Okay, hopefully everyone backtracked. I'm not going to ask you guys to check, but is anyone needing a hand before I continue? No? All right. So instead of going to save as, a safer way to deal with JPEGs where you can see what's happening to your image as opposed to that blind way is to go to export. And under export, you have a couple different choices. You have these two up there, quick export as PNG, export as, save for web legacy. There's whole bunches of different ways. Send stuff to Illustrator, layers to files. There's just like bazillions of things you can do. All right. The one that we want is export as or save for web legacy. Export as allows me to save as many different things and gives me one preview. Save for web legacy allows me to save, again, as many different things, but gives me 4 previews so I can see the progress of compression and decide if I've gone too far. Okay, so this one is a better tool for learning. In the future, when you know what you're doing, export as, you just need one preview and you know what you're doing, right? So either one works. The one that doesn't work is this one right now because this one has presets. Right now it's already going to PNG. I could change that to make a quick export for JPEG. So in export preferences, I could set this one to be a quick export for JPEG. And then it would always say, go ahead and save a JPEG really quickly and always make it 10%, 10 quality. Okay, boom. But until you know what you're doing, you can't set that one up. So you should go to this one where we can handle it better. Now, between these two, today, I'm going to show you the export as. So let's go to export as. And the important thing to know is the export as will not affect this image because whatever I do is going to export outwards. So it's not now here when I get rid of lots of when I get rid of lots of pixels and stuff in this window, it won't affect my real photo. So it's much safer than to do a save as. So those of you who have saved as for JPEGs for years and years, don't do that anymore because you could overwrite your good file. Go always to export as. It's a much better way. And over here, the first thing you need to choose is how are you going to do this? What format? And the default for me is PNG. I don't know what your default is, but you got to click in here and save. I'm going to save it as a JPEG. So we're going to save as a JPEG, which 99% of photos go to the internet, get saved as JPEGs. Only the ones that I need to cut something out should be saved as PNGs, and I don't need to cut anything out of this one. I just want to save it as a JPEG. Now, over here, it's showing me already, and this one, remember, is still at my big old 300 pixels. In the internet, the way I measure something, see how there's no place here that gives me inches? It doesn't even exist. Also see how there's nothing here that says resolution PPI? It doesn't even exist because when you go into the internet, it's not about resolution. Resolution only matters for print, okay? It only matters if you're gonna print something, and that's why you have to do that in this image size box if you're gonna go print. But if you're going to anything that's gonna be online, you have to create your JPEGs in here. And how will you know what size to make your image? Well, you'll have to ask the designer of the website, or if you are the designer and you know what you're doing, like, you know, Leland, he'll know what size he needs. If Linda knows that she sends her things in a certain format to her clients online, she'll know. You basically need to find out. If it's going on social media, you go to social media site and go, what size should my photo be for Facebook, right? If you have a blog, your blog will have already told you that your main image for your blog should be 500 pixels wide or 1,000 pixels wide, or it's going to be a small image on your blog. So you know it needs to be only 50 pixels wide. You need to find the size from somewhere who knows, As much as even in real life, when you go to print it, you go, well, what do you want? Do you want a 5x7? Do you want 8x10? What are you going to print? I asked Jacob. Jacob said he goes 19 by 13 something. Someone is going to tell you the size to print. Even the fact that you already bought a frame that's 8x10, your frame is telling you it needs to be 8x10. And then online, it's the same way. You need to find out from somewhere what size it needs to be, and then you set that size. So in this case, let's say that what we need is 1,000 pixels wide. So it's going to be an image that fills, you know, maybe 2/3 of a regular laptop screen. So I'll go in here to width, and I'll say 1,000 pixels wide. Once I hit tab to go to the next one, or if I click on the next one, height and width will adjust accordingly. Okay. Now remember, before I did this, my file size was much bigger. And then as soon as I start reducing it, and I don't know if you noticed, let me just cancel that so you can see that one more time. I said export as, and before I did it, with 3,000 pixels wide, I'm going to go to JPEG, with 3,000 pixels wide. Over here on the left, what it's telling me is that I'm going to end up with a file size with 3,000 pixels wide. That's 3.2 megabytes big. Keep in mind that if you're going to be, yeah.
I'm not getting that choices over on that side. I'm getting like a JPO or a PNG.
Up here on this side?
Yeah.
You're not getting JPEG? Format
I
is
see
JPEG?
when it says file settings, it says format PNG.
Yeah, so click on PNG. Go ahead and click on PNG and you'll get a set of choices and choose JPEG.
It doesn't do that for me.
Okay, can you share your screen?
Sure. Let's see. Where am I? Oh, I got to be on Zoom.
Anyone who has questions while she's putting this up? No?
I can't share while you're sharing, I guess.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot to stop sharing. That would be helpful. Yes, please share your screen. You have to hit the share green share screen, and then again the little blue button on the bottom right that says share. So it's 2 steps to sharing. So first the green button, and then the bottom right blue button that says share, your second share. This is why I encourage sharing consistently so you don't forget how to share. Okay, speak to me where you are so I can help you, because I don't know how to help you if I don't know where you're at.
Okay.
Did you click on the, oh, there it is. Okay. All right. So
I went to export as.
No. Oh, okay. Sorry. Go for it. Yes, export as. I saw you in this other window and I was going to say, no, that's wrong. Yeah, export as. Okay. And then on the far right where it says file settings, PNG, click on that. Click on PNG.
Right here or this?
Either place. And then choose JPEG.
Oh, okay. It looked like an O to me. Sorry.
No, that's fine. There you go.
Okay.
And now, since we're here, leave it there for a second so everyone can see, and instead of me sharing the same thing. The important thing here is to keep an eye on the size that you're going to save. So before she turned it to JPEG, it actually said 3.2. Now it's saying 2.2. Mine said 3.2, yours says 2.2. So now go down to where it says width and change from 3,000 to 1,000. And yeah, click on the next one and it will automatically shift. And now if you look over here, this is resetting itself. And it went from 2.2 megabytes to 400 kilobytes. And let me explain that 1,000 megabytes is equivalent 1,000 kilobytes is equivalent to a megabyte. So this is basically 3 times less. Okay, so it's like from 2, you went to half. This is like saying half of a megabyte. Okay, from 2.2 megabytes to half a megabyte. This is 457 kilobytes is half a megabyte. So just by getting rid of pixels, the file got much smaller. All right. But that's still too big for the a web page. A web page should try to be under 100 kilobytes. So in order to be under 100 kilobytes, you need to start compressing more. So to start compressing more, you need to go up to the place where it says quality, see up above, right under the JPEG choice, quality. So click on quality. And as you bring the slider down, it starts compressing the image more and more. And you keep an eye on the quality of the image and on the left side, the size that it's turning into. So stop there for a minute. Somewhere you stopped somewhere around at 30% quality, and look at how on the left side you got 55 kilobytes, or now you're back to 100 kilobytes because you moved it up to 53 quality. And now you need to look at the photograph and decide, well, is it okay? Is it not okay? Did I ruin it? Did I not ruin it? And the thing is that in this photograph is very forgiving. There's a lot of detail. So you will probably be able to, get quite a bit of compression without messing up your image. It all depends on that, on how much your, I'm noticing that by the way that your size, you had already changed your size somewhat or another, because I had 3.2, not 2.2 like you had, but anyway. So over here, in order to look at your image, see how it's already set at 100%, because that's where you see the quality of an image. So start looking around and start seeing what you're losing, and see if what you're losing is becoming weird. So if you're not sure, you can shift back and forth to 100% and back to 50%, and from 100% and back to 50%. This is why if you go to that legacy, you just see the befores and afters. Here you don't have the before after. You need to look at your image and see if it's good quality. I would say that with this very detailed image, with a lot of detail like hair and stuff, you can get away with a lot of compression and it still looks good. So I'm going down on mine all the way down to, like, I'm trying 30%, which brings it down to being only 72 KB, and it doesn't seem to be affecting the quality of the image. Much more than that, and I'm beginning to see weird stuff on his forehead. So go down to the very bottom, go down to 0%, and the quality, you got to keep trying. You can't just sit there. You have to keep making it as small as can be. So up there where you put 53%, if it looks good, keep going down, keep going down, keep going down. So now just to test, go all the way down to 0%. Just everyone do that. Go down to 0 or 1%, and then look at your image. And it's hard to see because this one is, as I said, with a lot of detail, you can't tell. But if you start paying attention to his forehead, there's some weird stuff going on in his forehead. If you need to make it bigger, go to 200%, like down there, click on this little plus sign at the bottom and make it, you can begin to see better. Look at his forehead. Look at all the little jaggedy stuff beginning to happen around his eye where the hair is falling over his eye. Do you see a lot of jaggedy, weird stuff? All of that is considered JPEG compression artifacts that are messing up. Now, you can see them because you went all the way down to 1%, which is, you know, ridiculous. You would never go that much. Plus, if you can see, the file didn't get that much smaller at 1%. It's still 30 KB. If I now move it back to 50%-ish, and then wait, you see the image shift in quality tremendously. Now it's looking good, right? So there has to be some place between 1 and 50% where it still looks good, but it gives me a smaller file. So keep moving down now to, like, you know, 40%, and keep an eye on those places that you knew were going to become problem places. And with my trained eyes at 40%, I'm already seeing the forehead turn a bit wonky. But when I say trained eyes, it's because I know where to look. Most people would think it's still fine. I go down to 30%. You know, for somebody who isn't paying too much attention, 30% is still working well. and my file now is under 100 KB. So maybe I can go as far as 30%. After that, I'm beginning to see too many little artifacts. So you go back and forth on this and you try to get it as compressed as possible without losing too much quality. That's the name of the game here. Now, I feel like I wouldn't go under 40% for this one. And so that's where I'm going to leave mine, but it's up to you to train your eyes and try it with different images. This image is very forgiving because there's a lot of detail. If you have a smooth sky or a smooth background, you'll start seeing JPEG artifacts way sooner. It'll become you'll not be able to compress. Most of the times you can't go under 60% when you have a very smooth feature, because smooth features will show the artifacts much sooner. But if you have a very textured, you know, the bark of a tree, well, you can probably compress it like crazy and you will never see those artifacts. Will just look like more little rivulets in the bark, right? So it depends on your photo how far you can compress an image. So I'm okay with going all the way down to 40% on this one. And at that point, you can say export. So I noticed that Dot stopped sharing, so I'll start sharing mine. I was using yours for people to learn. I need to be willing to be the guinea pigs. All right, so now I'm here in mine, and I'm down over here to 38%-ish, and I've got under 100 KB. And so I'm okay with that file. I'm beginning to see a few things, and I don't want to go any smaller than that. Okay. All right. Notice, by the way, that if it's going to the internet automatically, it says convert to sRGB, which is the color space. Okay, guys, I'm sorry. I'm going to stop my dog. My kids get out of their classes right before we finish ours, and that's why at the end of class the dog starts barking because he's so happy that people are moving around the house again because they're coming out of their Zoom rooms. Okay, so it's ready to be saved. Let's go ahead and say export. It doesn't say save because it's not going to save over this one. It's just going to export a version. So we'll say export. And over here, it's so important to distinguish this JPEG from all the other JPEGs. This is going to save as a JPEG because that's what you requested. But if it has the same name, you're going to be in trouble again. Plus, you compressed a ton and you lost pixels, okay? So it's important to write that. So I'm going to add to this name 1,000 pixels because that's my widest side. And I'm going to do another dash and I'm going to say, I did 38%, but whatever, 40% quality. So that to me means that I did 40% quality. That's how much I compressed it. So that's just how I write it. It's just something I've come up with. I'm sure everyone has their own way of doing it. But now when I look at this file, I know that this version is very reduced in quality and very reduced in pixels, and that I should not try to print from it, for an example. So that version, once I've changed the name, I get to save it. And it saves outwards, and I'm back to my big old file. So see, save as, you have to go back and get rid of all your history stuff. But when you export, it just saves out. If I go to my files here, you'll see that there it is, and it's 68 KB. So I have 3 versions of this right now. I have my raw version, 94 kilobytes, 94,000 kilobytes. My second one that I saved to become a 3x2, that's 500 kilobytes, and my version for the internet, that's only 86 kilobytes. That really, really is crucial because you should never open this one to print. You should never open this one to print anything bigger than a 3x2. So these, if you're never going to use again, you can get rid of them once you're done because these are limited edition, so to say, JPEGs. Next time you need an 8x10, you have to go back to the original RAW. Sorry, I say RAW, not RAW. This I retouched with RAW, that's confusing me. To the original layered PSD, open it up again, and then again, find another way to save another JPEG out, adapt it to 8x10. Or if it's going to go in to a brochure or a book or something like that, then you can leave it as a layered file or convert it to a PDF. But that's if it's going to continue to be part of something where you'll keep treating the image as part of your design. But to output for print would be this one, or per file would be this one. You're done. How many more 3x2 times are you going to print this? Well, probably never again. How many more times are you going to need a 1040 quality? Probably never again. So you can get rid of them. Just never get rid of the raw one. Am I clear about that? Is that, you don't need to get rid of them. If you have space in your computer, don't. But if your computer is getting crowded, there's no need to save those JPEGs because it's so easy to pump out another one. Open up the layered file, pump out another one that fits your specific needs. Okay? Does that make sense, you guys? Any questions about that process? We have a few more minutes. If there's no questions, I want to show you another photograph. Let's go back to Bridge. I want to show you a photograph where compressing that much does make a difference. And if we go to this photo right there, at the very top under C, content aware family.
You need to share your screen, Diana.
Oh, sorry, I had stopped sharing. Here's my Bridge image, thank you. So I went back to Bridge and I want to show you one. See, there's a lot of smooth sky over there. Let's go ahead and use this one because you might be able to see the compression artifacts better in the smooth sky. So let's open that one. And as I said, it's called Content Aware Family Crop Unedited. And double click on that one and open it up in Photoshop. See how smooth that sky is? It's a smooth gradient. That's about worst case scenario for compression. Down here, you already have some texture in the sand. You have a lot of texture in the water ripples. That's going to compress a lot just fine. But in the smooth gradient, you're going to start seeing messy stuff. So let's go ahead and try to compress this one and you'll see what I mean. Does everyone have it open? Okay, I hope you do. Let's go to File. Leland, if you're still around, you say you need to run. You make sure you know that this is the last class. When you say see you next week, you probably mean Dreamweaver class, or maybe you're in the other Photoshop class, but I just wanted to remind people that this is the last Photoshop class for today of this session.
No.
Oh, who said, oh no, you didn't hear me?
Yeah, this is Carol. I'm sorry.
No, next week I start in the morning with Illustrator and in the afternoon with the new Photoshop class, which you won't be in unless you sign up for it. Maybe you already did, I don't know.
No, I didn't, but I asked you to put my name on the list because
Yes.
you said we couldn't sign up.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, good.
Thanks.
So
Okay.
I just wanted you guys to know
Gotcha.
that.
Thank you.
That's all. So File, Export, and for this one, just so you can see what I'm talking about better, let's try out the Save for Web, which, well, you know, I don't want to confuse you. Let's just do Export As, because since I don't have that much time, I can't, I'm actually on the dot. It's 11:55, so it's time to be done, but I want to show you the sky. So go to Export As, and let's do the same thing. Notice that your settings will be now and where you left them before. Last time we had said we wanted a JPEG, and so it went back to giving me a JPEG. Now make it as big as you can, because I want to be able to see this photo at 100% to see the details, and so I have more space to move this up to 100%, and then drag it down so you can be looking at the sky. Okay, so now that you're looking at the sky, or I'm looking at the sky, I had to move it 100%, and that's why I made this really big so I can see a lot of my sky. Look what starts to happen when I start to compress. So maybe you can see it on my screen, maybe on yours, but I'm going to go ahead and give you the worst case scenario. I'm going to compress this all the way down to 1%. Do you see what happened to the sky here? Do you see all those bands and lines? And if you don't see it on my video, do it yourself. Go to this photograph and move the quality of compression down, so the max possible compression you can do. And look at that sky. It's like little Lego blocks of gradient, light blue, middle blue, dark blue. Do you guys see that in your own? I'm not getting any feedback from you guys. I'm not sure if you're seeing how bad the quality
I
is
see
getting.
it. I see the little Lego blocks.
It's like this little, interesting pattern. The smoothness is gone. If instead I go look at the family and the water ripples, that's fine. You're okay. It's not that they're not getting that same effect, but all that stuff is hiding in the details, right? So yeah, I can tell that something's weird, but it's not as easy to tell as it is very easy to tell up there. See what I mean? The difference between a smooth gradient and not? I want to get a little yes from everyone who is getting that big, like you got it. Yeah, you see that it looks very different. Now that's extreme, but it's for me to teach you what to look for. It's for that kind of like jaggedy patterns, right? So when you have jaggedy patterns like that in the detail, I lose it in the detail, but in fact, I can still see it on the edge of the water here that is kind of weird, and the edges of the houses. I have a whole little outline to the edges of the houses. Okay, now that no one would ever be as crazy as to compress to 1%, but I wanted you to see the difference. Okay, so now back to 100% where it looks nice and smooth. And if you didn't see it before, then just go kind of back and forth. 1 to 100%, and you will see in front of you, you will see the sky going a disaster. Okay, so now the challenge is how far can you push the sky before you start seeing those things? Well, let me see. At 70%-ish, oh, the sky's still looking okay. Keep an eye on all the corners of the sky, and at 70%, okay, I managed to get that file much smaller. Let me remind you now, it used to be 2 megabytes, so by compressing it to 70%, I got it all the way down to 1 megabyte without losing much quality. Okay, let's see if I can push it down to 50%. I'm going to click on about 50%. I'm beginning, the trained eye is beginning to see some stuff around the edges of the cliffs here. There's like a little double line, a little outline in the sky. Now, if I'm still wanting this photo as a, hey, look at a great summer vacation I had, who cares? But if this is a photo of my skills as a great famous photographer, that already is not good, okay? So it depends on your need for this photograph. So if I'm just sending it to my mom and I want to send a small file, look, now it's down to 0.5 megabyte. So I went from 2.5 megabytes to 0.5 megabyte. So it's good. This setting is good. Now let's go somewhere like 25%. And no, the sky is already a disaster. So at 18%, definitely a no-go. So that's my limit. So now I go back up to, let me see, 25%. No, I'm seeing all kinds of speckly. It's not a smooth pattern anymore. And if you're not sure, because as I told you, the Safer Web Legacy gives you 1, 2, 3 steps so you can compare. Here, you can't compare. So all you can do is say, okay, move quickly to 100%. And look at it then. Oh yeah, that's why, because you kind of forget, and then go jump straight back into about 25%, and that'll go, oh yeah, the whole sky is rippling. It's all patterned and rippled, so 25% doesn't work. You can also go over here and quickly go back to 100%, so you see when it's really good, and then go down back to 50% and look at it and compare, and go, I'm seeing some ripples, but it's good enough for my family. It's probably not good enough to print professionally, so I think that the safest spot is around 70% for this sky. That looks pretty smooth. So depends on your level of what you want. I'm going to leave this one because of the sky, not compress it beyond 70%. Okay, so that's how you kind of go back and forth. All right, we don't need to complete the whole thing on this one. I just wanted to use that one as a sample of a photo that really does get affected by a lot of compression. All right, guys, any question? So I know some people had to leave early already, but if you guys are here and you have any questions, I'm still here.
Diana, I had a quick question. How did you make it so that you could see your photo larger? In other words, mine was, if I wanted to do like 100% visual of the photograph, I was only getting part of the complete photograph.
Okay, so what I did is I have a pretty big screen here that I'm sharing from. And so when I went to export as, I made it, if you have a smallish window and you have to go to 100%,
Right,
you only
that's
see
my-
a little bit of it. So what I did, I grabbed the box and I made it bigger, but I have a 27-inch screen in front of me. So I have the opportunity to do that. But if
Okay,
you
I knew it was
don't,
grabbing it from somewhere. I was trying to grab the actual edge of the photograph and pull it bigger.
oh, got it. No, I grabbed the edge of the export box.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
And that's how I made it. Yeah. This is, once again, this is the export box. And if you make the box smaller, you have to kind of scooch around to see your whole sky. And some of you guys that's all you have. But yeah, you can't grab this little box. You have to make the entire box wider like that. And then you see more of it. Okay. And then you still might not see all of it. Now this sky has I don't know if you've been noticing a big patch here of darkness. That was a dirty lens. That was a vacation in the summer there was a little speck of dust, tiny speck of dust that sat there in my camera, and all the photos of that summer have a little spot there that's a bit darker that you don't see it until you see it. And when you see it, it ruined every single photo. And whenever I've wanted one of these photos to be a good print, I've had to really retouch that spot out, because when you don't see it, it's fine. But when you see it, you can't stop from seeing it. It's one of those like, Anyway, great. Oh, thank you, Hannah. Unfortunately, when people say these nice things to me in the chat and then they disconnect, I don't get to appreciate them, but thank you, Hannah. All right, guys, that was a good question. So now I can cancel again. Any other questions about any of this process? By the way, in the in the image file, an image size, that box also is resizable. I can pull it open and make it bigger or smaller. So these boxes in the newest versions of Photoshop allow you to make the box bigger or smaller so that you can see what's happening to the image, whereas in the older Photoshops, you never could do that. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. All right. Well, looks like we're done here. Carol, I really like your background, those little bubbles. What is that? Where did you get that? I can't hear you.
I don't remember. There was someplace up in Seattle, and I don't remember if they're buttons or what. Yeah, I think it's kind of fun.
It's kind of
the
fun.
Background.
Yeah, I mean, I can't of all the things I do in teaching, I can't put a fake background on mine because it takes up more of the internet thought to fake the background and stuff, and it's bad enough that I'm running 3 computers, but I kind of like the happiness of that one. So anyway, I thought I'd tell you.
Thank you. Thanks very much for the class. Hope
You're welcome. Bye, guys. So again, if you want to learn more about Photoshop and you want to take a class that's someone else, that's also another way to learn more, because different people have different points of views of how to teach and what to show. So Bruce Burkhart teaches Photoshop as well. And then again, each time I teach, I use different images. I talk about different things because there's so much to cover. So if you keep taking the class, even if I'm teaching masking, I'll do it with a different mask and you'll learn more about masking. If I teach, resizing, I'll do it with a different image. And so each time you get more and more stuff. So taking a class again isn't repetitive. It's actually just building upon your skills. So consider back in spring, taking it again from me or from someone else. Anyway, just keep working at it because it's one of those things like you get better at it as you keep going. Okay.
Yeah.
Teaching it in the spring.
Are you going to leave the videos available?
Yeah, the videos will stay available. Mm-hmm. You'll all have access to that format and keep watching them as much as you want. And Owen, yes, I'll be teaching Photoshop in spring in the morning on Fridays. I always teach Photoshop. So
okay, and
all my other classes vary here and there, but I always invariably teach Photoshop. It's one of my favorites, so I always ask for that one.
And so it would be like different pictures and different,
Yeah.
we would hopefully get even more advanced.
Yeah,
Not that
yeah.
I'm
In
very-
fact,
Not that I'm very advanced yet.
no, in fact, of the people who were in this class, about half of them have already taken my class repeated. Marie has been in it for years and years. Dorothy has taken it a few times. A lot of the people who are left here, a lot of people take them again and again because it helps them hone in on when you take it the first time, you only get a certain amount of what I say, even you're all doing the same thing. By the time I take it a second time, you can hear what I'm saying. And you can see that there's an overtone of stuff you didn't catch the first time, right? So, and then on top of that, I'm doing it with a different image where the challenge is different. And so you learn something new. And then next time I might do a different content aware. There's 10 content aware tools. I'll teach you content aware with a different tool. So even though I'm teaching you content aware is a different version of it, right? So each time I'll vary what I teach so that people build upon their skills, right? So, yeah.
And also Photoshop keeps upgrading and changing.
Oh, yeah. And then there's that. Photoshop itself changes and you need to keep now. I mean, Marie, I think you've been in my classes for like on
A
and
while.
off, not all the time, but yeah, I'd say 8 years, not all the time, but she'll come back, right? There's something new.
Absolutely.
She'll come back and she'll do something else. And then she'll come, and Sam, who told you how she does work, she's been taking the classes for like 3 years and she went from knowing nothing to now she's selling her services, right? Same with Leland. So it's the same class. Technically, it's the same class, but you build upon skills by taking it again because you get better and better at it. And then you can begin to fly on your own with it and do your own things. So yeah, it's not repetitive in the sense that I teach you the same exercise, the same thing, not at all. So, all right. See you guys.
I'll see you. I did register for the next session, so I'll see you next week.
Cool. I'll see you next week in the afternoon, and I'll see some of you guys in other classes you're taking, or I'll see you in spring. Okay?
Okay,
Bye.
thank you.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, bye.
Be well.
You're welcome. Bye, Marie. Bye, Dot. Bye, Dorothy. Becky and Owen. Bye, Carol.
Bye, Deanna. Thank you very much. Have
You're welcome.
a good weekend.
You too.